All right. Welcome back to another week of the Legacy Premier League, sponsored by Wizards of the Coast, Card Hoarder, and Scott Monroe. We couldn't make it happen without their support. We really do need it. Thank you all for joining us tonight. My name's Phil Gallagher, and I'm joined here by Eric Virgo. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited for the matchup that we have tonight. Jarvis U versus Autumn, just two fantastic players. Autumn, obviously an incredible NPL member, and Jarvis, an absolute legacy specialist. I think we're going to see some fireworks tonight. Who do you have taking it down?
Well, unfortunately, I think I have to vote for Robo Jarvis here. He crushed me real hard last week, and I think he has fantastic range. And despite the fact that I think he made a couple of wrong called shots in his deck list construction, I think things are still going to work out well for him. What about
Yeah,
you?
I'm going to take Autumn on this one. I was really impressed with their play last week with the Hogak deck. There were so many micro decisions involved there that I thought Autumn made they navigated it just absolutely fantastically, and I think that skill is going to translate into the decks that they're playing tonight. But let's see what Twitter thinks. Wow. That is pretty lopsided in the favor of Jarvis, almost 75%. So like a 3-to-1 ratio, thinking Jarvis is going to take it down. That's a pretty heavy favorite. What do you think about that?
I think Jarvis has a lot of name recognition at this point. He's had a lot of success on, various levels of Magic. He's a popular legacy streamer. And I think fewer people might be familiar with Autumn's work. Prior to the LPL starting up, I didn't even know that they played all that much Legacy, and then I've been super impressed by their play throughout.
Yeah, and I think Autumn's deck choice, especially the first one, is gonna sort of favor their ability just to play the game at a fantastic level all around. And that deck choice is Four Color Miracles. So if you haven't seen this yet, it's a little bit of a newer take on the classic archetype. So it's still playing the miracles like Terminus and the win condition of Entreat the Angels, but it's splashing a few additional colors for cards like Ice Fang Coatl, and then you get some Pyroblast out of the sideboard. And I think Autumn chose this deck because it actually took down the GP recently, just last weekend, which is pretty incredible.
So, just kind of while we're on that note, and we're still kind of in our introduction phase here. Do you have any thoughts on the GP results or kind of the state of Legacy right now?
Yeah, I think it was a lot of what you would expect, especially looking at the top eight. There were quite a few blue decks. I believe Dredge made it into the top eight, so that's pretty good when the field is very blue at the top tables. But the big thing is that, or I guess the story of the GP is the amount of Okos that were in the top eight. I think there were a total of maybe 14 copies or something like that. I'm not sure on the exact number, but it's
I
quite a
heard it
few.
was 77 copies, but
77,
that wasn't
77.
confirmed.
Unconfirmed, yeah. Mathematically, I don't think that's possible
Oh,
for a
you're
top
right.
eight.
That doesn't check out. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that doesn't check out, but it's
There were a
still,
lot of them though.
yeah, quite a bit of penetration for that card. And, we see Autumn choosing to play three of them here. And one of the sort of old one of the issues with the old version of the Miracles deck was that it was actually very light on win conditions and it had difficulty closing out the game. The introduction of Oko is really incredible for this deck because it allows it to play a defensive role when it needs to and an offensive role. So it's basically slicing and dicing in this deck, and it was basically exactly what Miracles was looking for.
Yeah. So a lot of times you're putting a card in a deck for a specific purpose, but it also does other things. So you're primarily putting Oko in your deck as this board control card. And then it's just like, oops, I needed life gain versus burn. Oops, I needed to shut off that chalice. Oh, like my opponent's not doing anything? It's elk time, and I'm going to start turning things sideways.
Right.
The
It
card
does.
does so much.
Yeah, it does a really good job at turning the corner. And just to sort of as an indicator of the power level of the card, Autumn is choosing to play three Okos and two Jace the Mind Sculptor. Jace the Mind Sculptor, better than all, but maybe not anymore. I think quite a
I
few
don't even think
people.
it's a hot take to say anymore. Oko is the best planeswalker in Legacy. Like,
I totally
just
agree.
kind of end statement.
Yeah, I think Oko is the best planeswalker of all time, full stop, by basically any metric that you look at it. And, uh, you know, because blue is the best color in Legacy, a lot of the traditional fair decks sort of get to take advantage of just how strong the card is, and we've seen it quite a bit, and the GP results most recently indicate that.
So one other thing that I want to say about their deck list here is that we have main deck green cards. We have Veil of Summer here. Just kind of take a second to let this sink in. This is essentially a GP winning list right here, and it has main deck Veil of Summer. That should be an indication of exactly how good that card is right now and just sort of its flexibility.
Yeah, it's an incredibly potent card in the matchups where it's good, basically. If your opponent is playing blue or black cards, Veil of Summer is going to be an absolute all-star. So the inclusion in the main deck is a little bit of a gamble because it's a card that's very high ceiling and very low floor, especially in the main deck. We see legacy lists that play Brainstorm do this sometimes with cards like Pyroblast, now Veil of Summer, because it's not a great argument, but the worst case is that you can just brainstorm and fetch the card away if it's not a matchup where you need it. But the upside of it, getting a main deck answer to a duress against ad nauseum tendrils or something like that is just so good that sort of the weighted average decision that you're making there tips in the favor of including it in the main deck, which we see Autumn do. It's pretty wild that we're in that spot in the format.
And speaking of the matchup, why don't we take a look at Jarvis's deck list, which is, I'd say, a spicy one.
Absolutely, yeah. And we were talking about Oko, and we're going to see more but in a completely different deck. Jarvis has had incredible success with the lands archetype and legacy uh, over the history of the format, but this is an entirely new take on the deck. It's cut the red cards like Gamble, and it's straight blue green now, and it's playing 4 Oko Thief of Crowns. That is an absolute statement saying this is a core part of my game plan, and I've built my deck specifically uh, to set up Oko as best as I can. Pretty wild.
So, if you're not familiar with some old school lands lists, this looks like something that's maybe 3 years old or something like that. There used to be rug lands lists that played intuition, but we
Mhm.
haven't exactly seen much of that in recent times. I do really, really like this list. I think it has a lot of the flexibility that lands has while also bringing some new things to the table. One of my favorites being the Academy Ruins and Engineer Explosives or Walking Ballista Lock.
Yeah, and it may not look like it on the surface, but this deck has quite a bit of card advantage built into it. And the lands deck typically is the control deck in the matchup, and the Miracles deck is typically the control deck in the matchup as well. So we're going to be facing a control mirror here, and there's a lot of subtle stuff going on here in terms of like life from the loam and intuition and being a subtle demonic tutor for lands when you have the life from the loam engine going. But one of the things that we're going to see is these two decks just going back and forth, and they're going to be fighting over card advantage a ton, basically every turn. And one of the things to note here is that Jarvis has 4 Ogos versus Autumn's 3, so maybe he has a little bit of an edge there because that's a card advantage engine in itself.
I So in my mind, the most important card in this matchup is a one of in the main deck, and I think that's going to be Field of the Dead. I think that card is absolutely obnoxious to play against if you can't answer it.
Yeah, it is, and it's definitely a key card in the matchup for sure. And it is only a one of, but very similar to the Delver style decks that play like 4 Brainstorm, 4 Ponder. They have a very, they do a good job of finding their one ofs or their two ofs in their deck. Just because they see so many cards. And lands is very similar. Once the life from the loam engine gets going, it can really start tearing through your deck at the pace of like 3 cards a turn. And then we also see the intuition as the ability to go and find those silver bullets. So it's going to be a lot of jockeying for a position and definitely some card advantage battle going on here. And before we get into the match, I think we should probably take a second to explain the format for tonight. So both players have brought 3 totally different decks, and we have an Iron Man style matchup going on tonight.
What
So
does that mean?
so Iron Man is pretty special. It means we're going to get to see a lot of magic between these two, and they're going to play. Uh, Best of 3 matches, and each best of 3 match that you play, you sort of earn a point for that. And if you win that match, you keep playing the same deck. And if you lose, you don't get a point, and you switch to one of your other 3 decks. And it's basically the first person to 3 points. So basically, they have to make it through all of their opponent's 3 decks and eliminate all of them.
Yeah, so we will be playing a minimum of 3 matches, a maximum of 5, and I think we're ready to go on in there. Keep in mind, this is an elimination round, so we will see who will be going through come the end of the night. All right, let's look at some opening hands here. Let's start with Jarvis's hand, and Jarvis is going to be on the play.
Hmm.
This looks unexciting to me. I don't see anything that is going to make this be explosive. I mean,
Yeah.
other than the obvious engineered explosives. But
Yeah,
there's no loam, there's no exploration here.
right. But Jarvis does know what he's up against, and he knows that Autumn is not going to come out of the gate super fast either. Oh, and it looks like Jarvis is on a mold of 6 here already,
Yeah,
and
I think
refuses to
that's
eat.
on a fine on a mull to 6.
I
Um,
agree. Yeah.
on Autumn's side, it looks like they have a relatively safe hand. Again, nothing exciting here, but 3 cantrips means that they can turn this hand into whatever they need it to be.
Right, and one of the benefits of playing this Miracles deck is that you're playing quite a few lands, so it's very rare that you get mana screwed. And then you have a number of cantrips, so the number of opening 7 card hands that you can keep is pretty high. And Autumn knows what they're up against here, and um, they know that Jarvis isn't going to come out of the gates really fast either. So it's going to go nice and slow.
Yeah, Jarvis has a slow start, and we're going to see a walking ballista played out for a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of pressure. Some cool interactions that could potentially happen is that if walking ballista becomes elked, it will end up being a 4/4 because that +1/+1 counter stays around.
That's right, and I think that's what Jarvis is probably going for here. He knows he's on molded 6 in a card advantage based matchup, so he's already down a card being on a mulligan, and he might just say, "All right, let's try to aggro Autumn out." They probably didn't keep a hand with a lot of removal in it because Autumn knows that's not super important to the matchup, and he might just try and get there as quick as he can.
So, what is Jarvis thinking about when he's playing out this engineered explosives?
So that one is a little bit of an oddity to me. So we know that Walking Ballista is on 0, and uh, the
Does
food
Autumn perhaps have a certain card that might create a bunch of angels he might be
that is,
scared of?
yeah, entreat the angels. But what's interesting is that entreat the angels is not relevant for quite a while. At the earliest, uh, Autumn would be able to make a single angel on turn 4. So Autumn would need 3 lands in play that we need to draw and treat for the turn, and then miracle it for 1, making an angel. So I think Jarvis might just be saying, okay, I'm gonna put this engineered explosives out on 0. It's gonna be my insurance against entreat for the rest of the game. But maybe being punished for it a little bit here because Autumn does have.
So, while I initially brought up this point to think about hedging about entreat the angels, the other thing is that playing it out this turn means that if he Okos and pluses on it next turn, it can start attacking immediately.
True. It'd be interesting to see though if let's think about this for a second. I mean, what are the chances that Autumn has access to 2 removal spells in their first few turns of the game? If they have the first one, it's pretty good because Autumn is playing Snapcaster. Okay, so we do see Jarvis run out the Oko here.
Which I assume will just get immediately force of will, probably pitching a ponder.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. And it looks like Autumn has a pretty firm grip on this game here. It's worth noting that Jarvis still is going to be able to put an attack together with the Lumbering Falls if he chooses to sink the mana into that each turn.
So it's been a little while. Lumbering Falls is 3/3 hexproof. Is that right?
Correct. And most notably, it only has hexproof when it's a creature.
So we'll see a ping and shoot here, which actually becomes super relevant end game if Jarvis ends up finding. Oh no!
Oh, and it looks like
Oh no!
Autumn drew pretty well here, and they're going to be able to stick an Oko on an open board. This is looking pretty good for Autumn now.
Yeah. So Oko is going to provide an extreme amount of pressure here. So we're going to
Yeah.
see a hit for 3, a hit for 6, and then 2 turns later, a hit for 9. So
Yeah,
this is scary.
that's quite a bit of pressure.
Jarvis also not necessarily in the best position in that like he has mana denial elements right now that aren't at their best.
Right. The fact that Autumn already has an incredible threat on board means that the mana denial strategy is not really where you want to be because when you're either at parity or ahead, mana denial is great, but because Jarvis is so far behind right now, it's not really a viable game plan.
At the same time, I still think it is something that you do
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
because
Jarvis
like
doesn't really have any other options here.
if he plans on investing in activating the lumbering falls, that just lines up very, very poorly against all of these elks that are coming out.
Yeah, and I
And
believe
Oko has relatively high loyalty to start with as well.
right, and I believe the activation on Lumbering Falls takes 4 mana, so Jarvis would have needed to wait an additional turn there.
So Autumn potentially just looking for lands off the ponder.
Yeah.
See if we can get them to drag it down. Hey, it's an island.
We see a land, and what else do we have?
It's just a very nice island.
Okay, so
Oko
it's
Snap Island.
wow. Okay.
Uh,
You're a little bit light on mana, so the Snapcaster Mage is not an all-star, especially when you already have one, and you already have a go. So I think I would be inclined to shuffle that away.
I think it's somewhat close because if you take the island,
No
you can
shuffle.
just like play a Snapcaster as an ambush viper and then
Mhm.
use the following Snapcaster to Snapcaster Ponder.
Yeah. And Autumn on the full beatdown plan here. And this is what we were talking about earlier. The old miracle, the miracle list of old just did not have the ability to turn the corner like this. Jarvis not making any relevant plays, and there we go. Game one goes to Autumn, fully on the back of Oko there.
All right, over under on the number of ban Oko comments in the chat right now. Set the
Uh,
line at 20.
Set the line at 20.
Yeah.
How many people are watching?
We have 222.
222. That's about 10%. I'm gonna go under.
I'm going to go under, but I think it's going to be close. All right,
so,
someone else can
so
count, though. Let's take a
someone
look at
someone else can count
sideboarding.
it. So let's focus on sideboarding here for a bit. We know that Jarvis has a heavy blue component to his deck with the intuitions and the Okos. So the Pyroblast and the Red Elemental Blast out of Autumn's sideboard, worth considering. Maybe not. Maybe not what you want to turn towards though. So if you're in
In
Autumn's
Autumn's
position,
position, the first
mhm,
thing I would be thinking about is the copy of the Graveyard Hate. I
sure.
think that's going to be a critical component of their game since Jarvis's end game engine is so very, very strong if it gets online.
Right, and that engine being life from the loam. Surgical extraction is a way to disrupt that.
Yeah, I'm unsure about the blasts. They're opting not to bring them in. I think they're very good at answering Oko,
Hmm.
but that's basically all they do. Like we're going to see some spell pierces. I don't even know if they will necessarily expect those to be coming in the first place, though, since these games are going to go on long, and spell pierce kind of has a limited shelf life for when it's going to be super effective.
Yeah, that card does not scale into the late game well, just because it's conditional counter magic. So turn 10, turn 12, that sort of thing. Spell Pierce very unlikely to do something. Um, it's worth noting that Oko was the most important card of that first game. It got Force of Willed. Or Jarvis's copy got Force of Willed. Autumn untapped and play a copy of their own, and that was effectively the whole game, right? So if those blasts are really only countering Oko, maybe it's worth considering. But Autumn opting not to bring them in and just saying, all right, I have enough counter magic where I can cover the Okos anyway, so I don't need to bring in this really narrow card.
All right, let's take a look at some hands here. It looks like Autumn has one heck of a clunker down there.
Yeah, this is one of the drawbacks to playing the Miracles deck. There's quite a few cards with high converted mana cost in them, and Autumn, I think, rightfully ships that one back.
I like Jarvis's hand though. Sylvan Library against blue decks is just chef's kiss good. That card is
Absolutely.
amazing.
Yeah, that card is an absolute all-star against miracles. And the second copy seems redundant. They don't do anything in terms of stacking. But it's very likely that if Autumn does have counter magic, they'll try to counter the first one. So the second copy definitely has utility. First one might just be a Hammer to Torok if Autumn has a Force of Will.
Another great interaction is that once you have a Life from the Loam, if you are looking for 3 lands, Intuition is just a triple tutor.
Yeah, it's very, very strong. Those
It's
cards work unbelievably
disgustingly good.
together. Yeah. Okay, so Jarvis gets to stick a Sylvan Library here. Oh, and then Autumn draws the Force a little bit too late. Another
So
thing
yeah,
that Oko does well, it makes food to gain life, so you can draw more cards off of Sylvan Library. Another
I
subtle
do like
interaction.
that synergy. And on Autumn's side, just to talk about things that food can do, the food can put them back above 20, meaning that a single Merit Lodge hit won't necessarily be lethal.
Right. That's one of those subtle things that you see. Decks with incidental life gain sometimes they're not as scared of Merit Lage because it takes 2 hits rather than one. A lot of people sort of shortcut Merit Lage just make being a one-shot kill, but it does 20 damage. So if you're at 21 or 22, you do get to survive.
I've had some very, very disappointed lands players, or no, it's usually depths players, like attack me and then start picking up the cards, and I'm like, no, hold on, I have 1 life left, and they're like, oh no.
Yeah, give it pro white, attack you. All swords my own. Thalia in response, go to 21. Yeah. All right. And Jarvis in the middle of the Sylvan Library here, looking at a bunch of lands. Um, Very similar to Brainstorm. Fetch lands combine really, really well with the Sylvan Library, and it's going to give Jarvis some optionality in what cards he wants. So he's not forced to pay 8 every time um, if he doesn't need one of the cards and he wants to dig deeper. Okay. So
Yeah, we could talk for a long time about how much damage you're supposed to take off of that exact Sylvan Library.
yeah, it's one of those very deep decisions where you can try and imagine the decision tree and try and figure out what the optimal line is. But the truth is that a lot of the time you're in positions like that in Legacy, and there are so many different things to consider that there's no way that you can figure out everything. So sometimes you just go by feel, and it's very likely, or it's very possible that's what Jarvis was doing there.
I might have been inclined to just take 4 and leave the port on top.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a tough spot, but Jarvis opting to play the Oko here. The When he played the Sylvan Library the turn prior, it snap resolved, which indicated that Autumn didn't have any sort of counter magic to deal with it. But as we know, Autumn did draw the Force of Will immediately afterwards. So I think we're probably going to see a Force here from Autumn.
So if I was to guess Jarvis's plan right now, my guess is that Jarvis plans to go for a Life from the Loam while Rashadan porting next turn. And then the following turn, he can set up Intuition for whatever it is he needs, plus also Rashadan port. With things getting pretty silly if he can pick up an Exploration.
Yeah, he has quite a few options here. One of the other routes that he can take is he can start drawing cards with the Waterlogged Grove, and then Life from loaning that back every turn. I think he's probably a bit too light on mana right now to set that up as the main game plan. But he definitely uh, has quite a few options here with this Life from the Loam.
So we're going to get some Sylvan Library looks.
Oh,
Oh,
Field of the Dead.
oh,
Okay. Now, Field of the Dead requiring 7 lands with different names to be
different
in play
names.
to start being a zombie engine. It's worth noting that if Field were to come into play now, it would be the 4th land, but only the one with a 3rd different name on it. So Jarvis is pretty far away from actually winning the game through that route.
So Oko's kind of nice here
Yeah, it
in
is.
that it's a huge distraction for Autumn, and they're going to have to decide how they want to navigate around this Oko.
Agreed.
There's not a counterspell safety net this time, although we may see a brainstorm to try to pick a fight over this.
Yeah, right now Autumn doesn't really have the tools to appropriately fight an Oko on board. Both of its relevant abilities are pluses, so just the one damage from the Ice Fang Coatl each turn isn't going to be able to keep the Oko in check. It's still going to get to do its thing pretty much unhindered.
Jarvis is at 9, though.
Jarvis is at 9. Oh, but we do see a Force of Negation, so I think this Oko is going to be met with a counterspell as well.
Yeah, seems to me like you throw back one land and Swords to Plowshares, you force a negation, pitching the Ponder, and then
Yeah,
slam a chase.
yeah. Very similar to Oko. The Planeswalker on a Jace on an open board is just very, very difficult to deal with, especially for the lands deck, which doesn't have the ability to really put pressure on.
So we're gonna see very quickly whether or not Jarvis was too aggressive with the first Sylvan Library taking 8.
Hmm. I mean, between 8 and 9 turns is quite a long time in Legacy. So if Autumn isn't able to put much more of a clock on here, there's a very good chance that Jarvis is going to be able to claw his back way into this game.
So just thinking about what Jarvis can intuition for. Blast Zone is something that could answer the Jace if he can produce 4 different colors of mana.
Well, he doesn't need 4 different colors. He just needs to be able to take the blast zone all the way to
Oh, right.
4 and then
Sorry, I
activate
was
it for 3. That's a total of
brain
mana.
fart there. I was thinking ED.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that's a total mana investment of I think 6 plus. It's total of mana investment of 9. So it's going to take him a while to set that up.
Autumn making a very good play there. So they fetched Mystic Sanctuary so that they could go and put that Force of Negation on top,
Hmm.
and Brainstorm afterwards allows them to go and just make it so they have a very good chance of countering, say, another Oko that came along, and Force of Negation Exiles, which is huge for Life from the Loam reason.
Absolutely, yeah. And Autumn being rewarded here for that play. Mystic Sanctuary just basically uh, acting as a demonic tutor in this deck, and the brainstorm off the Jace hitting an actual brainstorm as well. So now Autumn has a blue card, and I don't know if you noticed, there's another Mystic Sanctuary there.
So this is an upkeep intuition from Jarvis.
Yeah,
Do you
Jarvis.
bite on this?
What's that?
Would you counter this?
No, I don't think I would. The thing is, like, that's putting 2 cards in the graveyard and 1 card. Because deck lists are open, I think you know that all of the really relevant cards here are not four ofs in Jarvis's deck, so they have to go get a bunch of bullets. Oh, okay, and Jarvis opting to go get an exploration.
So this also has another benefit in that it also lets Jarvis shuffle the top of his library.
Yeah, that's the big one. Let's see. So we see another Field of the Dead. Not great here. It's not really doing anything to activate the first one, and it won't do anything on its own.
So
And
I'm
we
just thinking back to the previous turn for a minute. We did not see an attack from Autumn, correct? We just saw the Ice Fang Coatl held back.
correct. I don't think there's Jarvis has the ability to produce any haste threats. Oko can make an artifact that's been in play attack, but Jarvis doesn't have any in play right now. So Autumn opting to be a little bit on the defensive side, and it's worth noting that we do see another shuffle effect in Jarvis's hand with crop rotation. So we might see the same sort of play next turn, where Jarvis opts to crop rotation during his upkeep.
So this exploration is another one of those hard things where you have to decide whether or not you want to fight over it.
Yeah. And we do see Autumn being really aggressive with the Force of Negation here, but we do know that there's another Mystic Sanctuary on top of their deck. So what they're going to be able to do is put the Force of Negation back on top, Jace Brainstorm again, draw the Force of Negation, and just have the ability to hard cast, not even pitch cast it should they see fit.
Yeah, so I think in a vacuum, if they only had access to a single counterspell, I might be very hesitant about doing that. But with this setup, I think it's very smart.
Right. Plus, you get an additional card. Okay, so the swords here not going to be super active on this board, but it is good insurance to have. And just from a high level right now, Autumn has quite a bit of advantage going on with Jace. You know, they've had multiple brainstorms now, and they've used the resources that they've got to deny Jarvis from his card advantage engines, being Oko and Exploration. Wait, or
It's a great
Exploration.
thing from Jarvis here.
Yeah. Oh
So
wow.
Jarvis highly suspects that Autumn has brainstormed the Force of Negation to hand. So Walking Ballista plays around that and can snipe the Jace out here.
Yeah, and that's what we're gonna see. But as you were noting earlier, Jarvis at 7 life right now. Um, uh, yeah, so this Ice Fang Quaddle going to continue picking away at Jarvis, and Autumn with the shields fully up here with the Force of Negation and the Swords to Plowshares.
So a comment from the Peanut Gallery, Honorog asks, "It's kind of crazy, but if this was an Oko instead of a Jace, would this game be totally different? You
Yeah, I
know,
mean the game
just
would be
having those couple more points of loyalty."
the couple more points of loyalty would be totally different, and then the texture of the last few turns would have been completely different as well. We saw multiple brainstorms finding interaction for Autumn, as well as the it being coupled with the Mystic Sanctuary to be able to cast multiple force of negations. I think this game would have played out entirely differently. But the question of would Jarvis be dead? Very, very possible. You know, Jarvis is at 6, and you can totally imagine that Oko there would have been able to close out this game very quickly.
So now we're at my favorite point of the game. It's when someone has an active Academy Ruins and a sweet artifact in the graveyard that they get to abuse again and again and again. So we saw
Yeah.
the upkeep Academy Ruins activation to put Ballista on top of the deck. Now Jarvis has the ability to just cast his Ballista turn after turn after turn until he either kills with it, controls the board enough that he can start doing other things, or
Mhm.
just finds enough time for Field of the Dead to just start dumping zombies everywhere.
Yeah, and what's really incredible about the interaction between Walking Ballista and Academy Ruins is, you know, basically all of the removal in Autumn's deck is exile based or put on the bottom of your library. But because Walking Ballista has the ability to just shoot things at will at instant speed, it's never going to get put in the exile zone, and it's never going to get put in on the bottom of Jarvis's deck. He's always going to be able to move it to the graveyard, which means he's going to be able to get it back with the Academy Ruins.
I like what Jarvis has done here. So Jarvis suspects that Autumn still has that Force of Negation.
Right.
So he casts this Life from the Loam, which is a juicy target. This means that in the future, any sort of Oko or exploration or something of that nature will just be able to resolve safely.
Yeah. And we're going to see a couple key things from Jarvis this time. The first is that Walking Ballista is probably going to come down. And the other thing is Jarvis is at land 7 right now for this Field of the Dead. So he's going to be able to start to turn the corner here pretty quickly as well.
So one interesting thing is we may see Jarvis court down a land before playing the Ballista to play around a hard cast Force of Will. I'm not sure whether that's worth the tempo swing or not.
Yeah, the extra counter that would prevent Jarvis from getting an additional Walking Ballista, which is actually quite a big swing on the clock. So Jarvis opting to just make the biggest ballista possible here. He's going to be able to close the door quicker.
Yeah, and I think we're done here. Jarvis navigating that very, very well.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that Jarvis was behind there for quite a bit, but the cards that he got out of Sylvan Library were able to get him the victory there.
It looks like we're going to see some sideboard adjustments from Jarvis. He's looking at a couple of crop rotations right now.
Yeah.
Or a couple of counter spells, maybe.
Crop rotation close to demonic tutor in this deck, in the lands deck. But one of the sort of the downsides of crop rotation is that if it does get hit with a counter spell, you're a lot of times two for winning yourself. And in a control mirror, sometimes that card disadvantage is just not tenable.
The crop rotations feel fine if you have like Life from the Loam and Exploration or something like that. But when you're working on more limited resources, it certainly stings. I think it's a little riskier now than ever before because of Force of Negation as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And obviously, we know Autumn is playing those. So Autumn
Oh,
opting to bring in the blasts on the play. What do you think is going through their mind on the play versus draw? Why that? What that difference would be, or why you'd bring them in on the play and not the draw?
I think when you're on the play, you have some ability to leverage your own permanents first. And and by permanents here, I really mean like lands and Oko. So, like when you're on the play, you have one more land available before your opponent does. You have a greater ability to hold it up as an actual counter spell.
Right. Yeah. And one of the things that we saw during the first game was Autumn was able to play a really quick Oko and close the door quickly before Jarvis was really able to get anything set up. I think what might be going through Autumn's mind, bringing in the blast on the play, is all right. I'm going to play an or as aggressive as a game plan that I possibly can because I know I'm bound to lose the long game with Field of the Dead. Uh, so let's see if we can get an Oko in play. Blast is a one mana hard counter spell. And if you're trying to win the game as quickly as possible, hitting the key threats for one mana or hitting the key threats out of Jarvis's deck for a single mana is pretty good.
I also think Entreat the Angels might be a touch slow for this matchup. No, let me rephrase that. This matchup seems very mana intensive to me in that like both players are taking a lot of game actions. They have these mana sinks, these things they want to be doing, and sometimes I'm not sure that you can always afford to just tap out for this Entreat the Angels, given how many various things Jarvis has that they need to answer.
Right. It definitely is mana intensive. Even when you miracle it, in the face of like a wasteland lock out of Jarvis, you might not be able to make enough angels where you can just win the game in a single shot. Um, so okay, let's look at the opening hands here. Autumn,
Jarvis has an interesting one in that with a single green land, that hand is insane, but I think it's too risky.
I agree, but Jarvis's six looks pretty good here, and Autumn going to six as well. Their seven was just not functional.
I like
Um,
their six though.
yeah,
Force of Negation, just awesome at stopping Life from the Loam and Oko.
yeah, and both of these players with pretty strong six card hands here. Um,
Well,
Jarvis,
Jarvis's hand does have some problems.
yeah, the big one being that he doesn't actually have three mana sources right now. That Mox Diamond is going to eat up one of those lands. Um, so he'd love to just slam a turn two Oko, but he doesn't have the ability to do that right now. He needs to draw another land first.
Another thing that's slightly awkward about that hand is you have the Academy Ruins EE lock, but you're nowhere near the mana you need in order to actually do it.
Yeah, that's pretty. That's definitely an end game um, line that you want to take. So we're quite a few turns away from that. But Jarvis does find the land, and he's going to be able to play a turn two threat here, followed up with another threat, and then an intuition. So, he might just run Autumn out of answers.
So the real question is he slamming the Oko or the choke first? Which one is the bait spell?
So, given the fact that Autumn has fetch lands in play, specifically one that can find basic planes, I believe Autumn has a basic planes in their list. The utility of Troke right now isn't great. Um, so I think you're a little bit more incentivized to play.
At the same time, though, let's imagine the world where Autumn only has a single counter spell. The choke is probably good enough to hit a counter spell. Do you want to throw the choke away and let the Oko potentially resolve a turn down the line?
Yeah, and if you put yourself in Jarvis's seat, Autumn has taken 0 game actions besides playing 2 lands. So you have to try to infer what the texture of their hand is. Okay, and Jarvis running out the choke.
This is the play that I would have made.
Mhm.
I really like leading on the choke. I think it is the bait spell here, and you try to stick this Oko and let it take over the game. I just think that line is so strong if Autumn doesn't have their own Oko.
Yeah. And what we're looking at right now is exactly Autumn with no cards in her
Oh,
hand. Oh,
oh
jeez.
man. So this is great. So Jarvis now gets to resolve this card. If Autumn goes and taps low to try and answer this Oko somehow, like say they ponder and dig for Pyroblast or something like that, Jarvis gets to follow it up with a devastating choke.
Yeah. Autumn needs a really good draw step right. Probably a brainstorm. Shuffling away these 2 bad cards and finding some plus a an answer for this choke that's about to come down.
Are they fetching to play Ambush Viper?
It seems unlikely because oh wow, they are. That's very interesting because this Oko is going to make a stream of 3/3s, and they're very quickly going to outclass the Snapcaster.
I wonder. Nope, nope. I was gonna say I wonder if they're just trying to like play the Jace on the currently elkless board and defend with Snapcaster for a turn. That's not what we're seeing.
Hmm.
Hmm.
I thought the line might have been play Snapcaster, leave it back, play Jace, Jace Brainstorm, and then if you get when you get attacked by an elk next turn, you can chump block and you get an additional Brainstorm activation out of your Jace. But Autumn opting to try and to to fight the Oko down here.
Well, I guess you've got these like Ice Fang Coatls that could be draws as well, or another Snapcaster, and you could try to pressure this Oko. You could try to Swords to Plowshares an Elk or something. The their position's bad.
Yeah, Autumn is not in a great spot here. They don't have an answer to this onboard. And Jarvis has honestly, Jarvis has 3 good spells in hand. All of them are all stars right now. So Autumn's gonna have to put something together here. They're definitely tanking on this fetch land activation right now, trying to figure out what land they need to get.
I
Autumn is
wonder if
probably
Choke is on their mind.
very it's very possible, yeah.
Seems like it to me. So I think Autumn. Okay, so I think I see Autumn's game plan now. I think they're going to Jace and Fate Seal, put Jace's loyalty up to 5, expecting Jarvis to plus and attack the Jace,
Hmm.
allowing another attack on the Oko without there being more elks. All right,
Yeah,
I see the line.
I think that's Autumn's line, but given the contents of Jarvis's hand, I don't think that's cut it.
Yeah, Jarvis is going to be getting a double sinkhole this turn, which is really going to put pressure on Autumn's resources. Oh, hello. It's an Oko.
Okay. That's a start for sure. So just so we're clear here, Autumn is targeting themselves with the Jace. So you know they're currently going through all the permutations of what do we do with this Oko, assuming that we get to resolve it next turn.
I think you keep it.
Yeah, I think you have to. It's one of the very few answers that you have in your deck to an active Oko, but this choke is gonna slow things down considerably.
Mm, that's that's probably a turning point of the game right there.
Yeah, I think it
The
is.
that choke
Um,
resolving.
but it's worth noting that Autumn is going to get another Jace activation here, so they can either brainstorm and try and look for a blue source, and yeah,
Oh, oh
that's what they decided to
no.
do. That
And this ponder can't shuffle because there's no blue source. Jarvis's choke here, absolutely destroying Autumn.
yeah, and just like that,
Wow.
we see Jarvis go up 1-0 here.
Um, I'm not gonna lie. I expected these games to go longer than they did.
Me too, but all 3 of those games were defined by 1 card, and it was Oko, Thief of Crowns. And the ability of that card to turn the corner in the control role and just aggro the opponent out is incredible.
So note that Autumn is not out of this yet. They now have the opportunity to counterpick one of their remaining decks and take on Jarvis's lands deck once again.
Hmm. And before we go into match number 2, I think we have a
Ooh. Hey, there we go.
yeah,
So, if you are interested in winning some of these sweet, sweet dice, please type card hoarder in the chat.
yeah.
Now, are you using card hoarder services?
I am not using card hoarder services. I've been
Well, I am,
not.
so I'll praise them to high heaven.
Yeah, I've only ever heard good things about them. I've just been an enfranchised Magic player for long enough now that I have a collection to play with.
Yeah, I have a pretty solid Magic Online collection. But then, every once in a while, I want to play Phyrexian Dreadnought Eldrazi or something like that. And Card Hoarder has my back, and they never ask questions about why I want to borrow these awful cards.
Hey man, if that's what you're signing up for in the Legacy leagues, more power.
Look, if you live the dream once in a league of having 2 Eldrazi Mimics and then playing a Phyrexian Dreadnought, like you've done it right.
Yeah, I mean, you could just play Stifle Knot instead, because then you get to play the best card in the format, Stifle.
Stifle's the best card in the format when it's the worst card in the format. That's how that
Well, it's
card
the worst card
works.
for your opponent.
Yeah, but I love Card Hoarder. Whenever they're out of stock on someone, you can message their like human representative, whatever you want to call them, and say, "Hey, I can't find any carpet of flowers. Do you have any?" And they're like, "Hold on, I'll find one for you."
Oh, that's pretty sweet.
It's been great.
Yeah, customer service is absolutely fantastic, from what I've heard. Yeah, if you're interested, oh no, it looks like the raffle is over now, and the winner is KM Brightville. So KM Brightville, shoot a message to It's Julian, and he will get you set up with your free set of dice.
All right, folks, we're gonna pause for just a minute while we switch out some commentators and get the other decks set up. So we will be right back in just a moment. Whoosh!
All right, welcome back. We're going into round two here of Jarvis versus Autumn. I'm here joined by Hans Jacob Goddick. Hans, it's your first time casting on the Legacy Premier League. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, so my name is Hans Jacob. I am, I guess, a little bit of a legacy specialist slash perennial 12 freer at GPs, apparently. I tend to specialize within blue decks, so really I would say probably Delver and Miracles.
Yeah. And I believe you were the 2017 North American Legacy Champion. Is that right?
Yeah, I won a small local tournament in Pittsburgh once.
Yeah, that's
People
right.
people may know me from casting Tombstalkers.
Yes, and you also had four main deck, him to Torak that tournament, which was very good.
Yeah, I've had a few of those. I'm also people also sometimes mock me for the free ponder approach to Delver.
Hey man, you put up the results though, so it's tough to argue with, right? I'm, I mean, didn't Josh Hunter Layton only play three ponders in his blue black shadow list at the Pro Tour?
I don't actually know, but it's probably the case. I will, by the way, say that the first guy to do it, where I got the hint from, was Rich Shade.
Hmm.
So I'm he wrote an article on Stasi if you played one of the invitationals. That was the moment where I was like, that actually kind of makes sense when you think about the way that you play a Team America deck and how the nature of the games play out.
Hmm. Yeah. So speaking of how things are going to play out, Autumn has selected the 5-color check pile deck to bring into this matchup. So can you go over? You're a blue specialist in Legacy. What is this deck trying to do, and what is it going to be? What's its role going to be against Jarvis's blue green lands deck?
Yeah, so generally the idea of the check pile deck is to play good cards. So if you talk to the actual check, whose name is Thomas Marr, you will generally hear him say things like, "My cards are much better than my opponent's cards," and that will generally be the case because if you look at this deck list, it has things like Baleful Strix and Snapcaster Mage and Hymn to Torach and Oko and Teferi and Jace. I mean, all of his cards are basically 2-for-1s.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the challenge, if you look at the matchup, is that his opponent is not really going to try to play into this strategy. But that's what the deck is trying to do, and that's why it tends to prey a lot on, if you will, fair decks. So I played Grixis Delver in the Bologna GP, and I played against this monster, and I can tell you that I got brutally, brutally savaged.
Yeah, and like you were saying, basically every card in Autumn's deck is a good card, and most of the non-land cards are 2-for-1s. Save the cantrips, which you basically have to play the Swords to Plowshares and the Drown on the Lock, and the One of Thoughtseize. Every card is a card advantage spell, except for those. So more often than not, Autumn is going to be playing in card and gaining card advantage that way. Obviously, we see some sideboard options, but not a ton in the realm of that's going to be super helpful against lands. But maybe this is going to play a little bit differently the last one. But I think our players are ready here, so let's head down to the match. Okay, it looks like we have Autumn on the play, and Autumn has a very functional hand here with a play on 1, 2, and 3. This looks like a great opener.
Yeah, this is interesting. So I think the big call here is, does Jarvis mull this? Because while it does have a turn-free Oko, which is quite good, his deck is, yeah, he mulled it. There's a lot better things he can do. Sadly, I think what he has in this hand is probably not on the list of a lot better things he can do. There is an exploration, but he really needs to find one of his engine cards to start going, which ideally would be Life from Below.
Mhm. It's difficult to mulligan this hand though because it does have the ability to power out things pretty quickly with the exploration and the Mox Diamond. But right now, Jarvis is really lacking anything to power out. But he can slow the game down a little bit with the Wasteland and the Thespian stage. So if he chooses to uh, copy the Wasteland with the Thespian stage, he'll get 2 Wasteland activations, and that's going to buy him some more time to find something to do.
that's kind of what happened here, right? So I think Autumn actually has, I would say, a fairly above average chance to win this game compared to what I would generally set the matchup at. The hymn is going to be quite good, given that there's no engine in Jarvis' hand.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see 2 lands out, and then the hymn is going to empty Jarvis, and then we'll be in top deck mode from there.
Yeah.
On both sides.
With the Jarvis's best top deck probably being Life from the Loam. If he chooses to put Thespian Stage in play, that'll change over to Dark Depths, though.
Yeah. Now, and this is kind of an interesting place, because if you look at Autumn's deck, so Autumn's deck has a lot more cantrips and a lot more 2-for-1s. So in general, Autumn will be top decking a lot better than Jarvis does. Now, the challenge is that Autumn doesn't really have much of a clock. I mean, Autumn's trying to win with Snapcasters and Baneful Strixes. I guess Oko is a clock, but
yeah, Oko is, I think, the best clock in Autumn's deck. Yeah, so
but we're likely to see a game that goes long, fairly long.
Yeah, it's that's what we were expecting last round too. But with the texture of each player's hands here, I do think that this is actually going to stretch out by quite a bit. Which I'm, of course, very excited about. The more Magic, the better. Okay, so Jarvis knows that he's playing against Hymn to Torok here, and even though Autumn has a basic island, Astrolabe is going to allow to play the Hymn this turn.
Oh, getting what are all of 2 basics in the deck are going to enter play.
Yeah, in the face of the Wasteland, that's pretty strong. Yeah, but Jarvis knows that Autumn only has access to 2 basics, so any other land that they put in play is going to be a target for Wasteland. So, okay, and Jarvis drawing another Wasteland here.
Now, Teferi can bounce Mox Diamond, which is kind of a sexy little play.
Yeah, that's a pretty nice little play.
Particularly since it leaves Jarvis on no colored mana.
No cards in hand. Put a Mox Diamond into play. Take you off all your colors. That's a pretty good line, especially because this exploration is not doing anything right now. It's only going to get active when Jarvis has a Life from the Loam, and they're able to start putting multiple lands into their hand each turn. So Jarvis is really far away from doing anything here. Let's see if Autumn runs that line that you were talking about. Is that too greedy?
Do they see it? Do they see it? Oh,
I have a feeling
I guess you can deem
Oh
me
yeah, let's do it.
Oh, poor Jarvis.
I'm always a fan of a good Stone Rain.
If there's a way I was gonna say, is there a way we lose this first game on Jarvis' side? This is the way you lose the game on Jarvis' side.
Yeah, not being able to cast any of your spells. Jarvis copying an Underground Sea with a Thespian Stage there to give him access to blue mana, but he doesn't have anything to do with it right now. And this Thoughtseize from Autumn next turn is looking pretty good. So Jarvis opting not to Wasteland there. Do you think he's planning on activating the Thespian Stage turn?
But I'm just sort of wondering, what are we trying to stage? Like, what is it that we want to stage? Are we hoping to see something like the Tropical come into play?
Yeah,
maybe that's the case.
I think Jarvis is hoping that Autumn has to play Green Source to cast one of the spells in their hand, but because they have access to the Arkham's Astrolabe, they don't really have to do that. So a subtle interaction between all of these cards here that's keeping Jarvis off of green mana.
Oh, by the way, I think we're going to see one of the more disgusting things that the check pile deck can do soon, which is once you have Teferi in play, Thoughtseize and Hymn can actually be cast at any point in time, including the draw step, which is not a fun experience.
Well, it's fun for Autumn, I'll tell you that.
It's probably as someone who likes to sing people the song of my people with him,
The
then
hymn.
I can tell you that hymning people in their doorstep must be the absolutely greatest feeling in the universe.
Yeah, and Autumn will have access to a Snapcaster Mage here, so they're going to be able to instant speed Thoughtseize during the draw step to make sure nothing too bad happens next turn. Oh, but they opted to shuffle there.
Ooh, that's interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
because you can kind of set up a game here on Autumn side where you just never ever allow Jarvis to copy a green source. And then that keeps him off of loam, while Snap him is going to keep him off of drawing green sources.
Yeah, we see a draw step Thoughtseize here, just like you were talking about. But Jarvis did find the green source, albeit not this turn. That Lumbering Falls is going to allow Jarvis to either play the Mox Diamond or to actually just be a natural green source for him.
Yeah. So I guess, I mean, this is where we see sort of the nature of the decks, right? Because if Jarvis is obscenely lucky and just rips life from the loam off the top, like the boss he is, then this game is going to very much start opening up in a way that's going to look a little bit grotesque.
Absolutely. And Jarvis has access to multiple copies of Wasteland right now, so they're going to be able to keep Autumn to basically 2 mana every turn for the rest of the game if they draw life from the loam, which is pretty powerful.
Yeah, but here we see Oko arriving to the party, so this game might not last all that long.
Yeah, and Autumn full of artifacts that turn into Elks. They're going to be able to turn sideways pretty fast.
I think if I'm Autumn, I'm trying to just go Delver here, like shut the game down.
Absolutely. Yeah.
This is this is not the time to be dawdling around. It's the time to get this game done and dusted and over.
100%. You have a Force of Will in hand, so you can counter any good spell that Jarvis draws. You know that his hand is bad because you just Thoughtseized him. Like, it's time to put the foot on the gas pedal and start going.
So you're ready to turn your Delver sideways?
Always.
And throw the bolts in face?
That's all I do. Okay, well, I mean, I'm trying to go through the permutations of Jarvis's deck here. What are the possible things that they could draw? Geez, it's basically just got to be Dark Depths, right? But Autumn has Swords in hand, which is going to gain Jarvis a lot of life, but
well, or just hold the Baleful Strix back and Oko.
Yeah,
the just turning a 2020 into an elk is again one of those experiences that's more fun for one of the players than the other.
Yeah.
Protection, by the way, is why this deck is. I mean, it doesn't look like it has a good depth matchup, but I would suspect that it's a lot better than what you think it is.
Sure. Okay, so let's see if we can come up with a series of draws for Jarvis that would allow him to win the game from here. It's looking pretty thin. Wow, and Autumn opting to make a food there instead of turning the Astrolabe into an elk.
Oh, he doesn't even get to keep Mox Diamond. I mean, if he'd ripped an explosives here, he'd slow down this game quite a bit. But even then, there's force. So
right, even then, there's Force of Will, which insulates Autumn from everything. Oh yes, so this is a very interesting interaction that comes up only in Legacy. So you'll note here that Autumn made the Arkham's Astrolabe into an elk before Tabernacle was on the table, which means that they will have to pay 1 mana each turn due to Tabernacle granting the Arkham's Astrolabe that ability. But if Autumn opts to make another Arkham's Astrolabe or the food token an elk, they won't have to pay the 1 every turn because of layers, I guess. I don't fully understand it. It's quite strange.
So here's what's going to be very interesting, Eric. You and I know what the ruling is. The big question is Moto going to get this right?
That is, I actually I'd be pretty confident that Moto gets it. I think Magic Online gets a lot of flack, but the reality is that Magic is an unbelievably complicated game, and it gets things right a lot of the time. And Autumn, recognizing that Jarvis is just super far behind here and is turning the corner with Oko already at 8 loyalty. If Jarvis does, Oko is converted mana cost 3 or less, or is it power 3 or less to switch? Okay. And we see Oko run away with that game, which has been pretty consistently tonight's theme.
Right, so sideboarding. So we're going to see those spell bombs come in real fast. I don't know what's Jarvis doing over here.
Autumn opting to bring in the blasts here. Good against Jarvis's Okos, of course. But they also have a Sylvan library, so it's another form of card advantage. Let's see, what are we doing on Jarvis's side?
So we're boarding out some of the poor lands and a couple of crop rotations. Choke is going to be a really obnoxious card to play against.
Absolutely.
It's interesting bringing the spell piercers. I guess Jarvis feels like the free mana spell Planeswalkers is one of the ways he loses the game, and that's why he's bringing in spell pierce. Like
Yeah,
my basic intuition would have been that you just weren't really afraid of them, but probably not then.
I think what might be going through Jarvis's mind is, okay, if I can make this, if we get to turn 10, so it's a really long game, I'm gonna win. I just have the ability to grind out even this 5-color control deck where everything is a card advantage spell. And what might be going through Jarvis's head is, okay, I need to make sure I get there. And one of the ways that we don't get to turn 10 is if Autumn sticks a turn 3 Oko or a turn 4 Jace or something like that. So the spell piercers are going to help insulate Jarvis from that happening, and it might allow him to extend the game. And if he draws a spell pierce on turn 10 or whatever it is, not that big a deal because he's probably going to be up so many cards anyway.
I guess there's another thing going here, which is that Autumn's main graveyard hate, if you will, or half of their graveyard hate, is Force of Negation. And Force of Negation can be spell pierced. So he may also just be trying to set up his gnomes in a way where he can pierce his way through.
Yeah. And other utility that Spell Pierce has in the matchup, tagging Arkham's Astrolabe. Jarvis is on the play, and he's a Wasteland deck against 5-color control. If you can keep Autumn off of Arkham's Astrolabe, it's going to make your Wastelands much, much more effective. So Spell Pierce, maybe not something that you would initially want to go to, but it does actually have a bit of utility.
So Jarvis's hand here is all gnome all day long, which seems like what you want to do as long as you're dodging the spell bomb.
Yep, and it does have the stage deaths combo in it as well.
Oh, that too. Yeah. That seems pretty good. I've noticed that Autumn only has one basic land, which is potentially a little bit dangerous. Not this particular setup, but it easily could become so.
Yeah, but Autumn's hand looks pretty great here. They're going to get to play a turn 1 Astrolabe, and then they have Inquisition to clear the path for an Oko. So they have the ability to win the game here. 2 pretty good hands they're going to be going against each other. Wow, and this Inquisition actually looking, not so great in the face of 2 life from the Loams.
If I see this and I'm I'm not too happy. Oh, you. Um, so I believe Autumn only plays 2 basics, right? So there's
Correct.
a
Yeah,
very
just the island and the swamp, the snow covereds. Yeah.
So there's a very real chance that the way this game ends up is that Ghost Quarter gets life from below a whole bunch of times, and Autumn will have 0 lanes.
Yes. Ghost Quarter being effectively a strip mine once Autumn has no more basic lands in their deck, which I think is actually going to happen here pretty quickly. Wow. Oh, in Exploration, there was actually a really huge draw for Jarvis. It's going to mean it's going to mean they're able to make a depths much faster here, or make a Merit Lage much faster here. Wow. And just the actual turn to concession from Autumn. Okay. That was a quick one. That's the first game of the night that we haven't seen defined by Oko. So these decks have quite a bit of tools here, and I think Autumn saw the writing on the wall. They knew Jarvis was going to be able to set up the Wasteland engine with Life from the Loam, or the Wasteland lock with Life from the Loam, and said, "Oh, I don't want to waste my time. Let's go to game 3 here."
So I just saw Autumn sort of fiddle around with the spell bombs. Were they not in last game?
I believe they were not in last game. Right now, their deck looks like it has 62 cards in it, and those 2 extra cards that they were bringing in were the spell bombs. Maybe leaning a little bit too hard on those Force of Negations to take care of
Yeah, or maybe more worried about Oko, I guess, than the card Life from Below. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the swap for Drown in the Lock is actually somewhat reasonable. Drown in the Lock in this matchup is, for the most part, just a 2-mana counter spell, which is a fine card. But there's probably better things that you could be doing with if you're Autumn.
I mean, this lands list is strange, but usually the problem with lands is that they spend so much time like wasting importing you that casting a 2-mana counter spell is a little bit something that you want to do, but it just doesn't happen as much as you'd like it to.
Totally. Yeah, and let's look at Jarvis's hand. He's got the key card in Life from the Loam, and Stage Depths combo. Plus, he has multiple Okos. So I think this is a pretty good hand from Jarvis. And if he can draw an accelerant like Mox Diamond or something like that, he's going to be really happy.
Yeah, I'm really kind of happy if I'm Autumn here with that opening hand. I mean, that's about as good as what you can hope to get.
Yeah.
Because you can abrupt decay your way through the really obnoxious permanents that Jarvis has in his deck. You have Force of Will, and then you have the Spellbound, which is going to potentially or save you at least from the first Life from Below.
All right, and we see a Ponder here, and Autumn is probably going to be very careful about leaving black mana up this game. They're not restricted on mana, so having the ability to draw the card off a Nile Spellbound activation is something that they're going to want to do here. We see, this is a slightly greedy play from Autumn, casting the Ponder, where that's the only other blue card in your hand for Force of Will, but they are able to find another blue card. And the question is, what do you take here? And, I think the answer is Force of Will, because you're going to actually want to cast that Baleful Strix at some point.
Yeah, that's probably not too unreasonable. I mean, the alternative would have been to just play a land and say go. I mean, also probably fairly conscious of the fact that Jarvis could be sandbagging your Mox Diamond.
Right.
There's also Sylvan Library, which I guess Jarvis can just jam at 2.
Yeah, even though the deck is called lands, there's quite a few permanents in it that are very, very important for the deck. So Sylvan Library, Exploration, Mox Diamond, all of these things matter a lot. So Abrupt Decay is a great card in the matchup.
So this is actually interesting because if Autumn goes and gets the Tropical here, Autumn doesn't have a whole lot of copies of the same non-basics. So if this gets wasted, that's actually kind of awkward.
Yeah, actually, we're going to see the Mana Denial plan coming up big way. This Wasteland plus the port activation is just gonna really, really chokehold Autumn. So even though they had access to 3 lands this game, it's gonna be tough for them to cast spells in an effective way for at least the next couple turns.
So this is probably eating a. Well, this is I mean, you have Nile spell bombs, so maybe that you maybe if you're Autumn, you think that can somewhat manage life from below. But it's a relevant force of will target.
It's definitely a relevant force of will. And what's worth noting about Jarvis's hand is that it's super, super threat dense right now. 3 copies of Oko plus 2 life from the lumps. Even if one of those gets eaten by a Nile spellbomb, you're pretty okay with that because you're going to be able to set up the second one.
Yeah, I guess another argument to force this is Jarvis is going to get immediate value out of it, whereas a lot of the other things you will have time to throw an abrupt decay at before it starts running out of control.
Interesting. So Jarvis is opting to cast Rishadan Port there, or excuse me, use the activated ability of Rishadan on the non-basic land instead of wastelanding it. What do you think is going through their head?
So,
do you think it's just that to potentially set up an Oko next turn?
I mean, Jarvis must somehow believe that he may need the mana from the wasteland.
Okay,
or he's trying to save the wasteland as a tactical play for later. I mean, there's often I kind of love the games with Wasteland in a sense where sometimes the right play is to not waste, but to just sit on it so that you can wait to actually tap your opponent out, so to speak,
right?
With your Wasteland at the right time.
Yeah, and Autumn has a tough ponder here. So there's an Oko, which is obviously an all-star card right here, but it's going to be difficult for them to cast it, given the fact that there's they're facing down Wasteland and Rishadan Port.
Well, I mean, Jarvis is running out of lands here, so I think if he doesn't draw a land, he may be forced to start trying to make loam work.
Yeah, I mean, Jarvis has the ability to Wasteland, loam back the Wasteland, and then, well, that would probably prompt the Spellbomb activation.
Yeah, you probably get the Wasteland back, and then Autumn spellbombs away the one-off loam, and then you have another loam going on.
Yeah, but if you end up doing that, you're gonna have to finish a non-basic land with the Flooded Strand, so you're just earmarking that Flooded Strand to be a low title, right? So definitely a pretty deep decision going on there that turn.
But it's interesting that Jarvis chooses to pause instead, which to me signifies that Jarvis is probably afraid of what the sort of things that can come out of Autumn's deck. So I'm guessing that Jarvis is sitting here worried about getting Planeswalker. Oh,
that's
wow.
Okay.
That's aggressive.
Yeah. That is a very aggressive spellbomb activation from Autumn there. I think they're just saying, okay, I need another card right now. Specifically, I need to hit another land drop. Brainstorm, Oko, Teferi. 3 great cards, but
not another land drop.
Not another land drop. And you might be really tempted to take Brainstorm here because you have the fetch land and you can get rid of these abrupt decays, which aren't really doing anything. But you're going to be drawing 2 cards that you can't cast. Autumn able to find another land there, so they're going to be able to mitigate the port next turn.
So I'm guessing that
Spell-Pierce.
This is really ugly. Oh, if just we had another land. So I'm guessing that what's going through Autumn's mind here is Jarvis is clearly sitting and breaking. So you can kind of extrapolate something about his hand. And since that's the case, I think Autumn is just, again, trying to just push the pedal. try to grind through the deck, get a planeswalker in play, and kill Jarvis before Jarvis starts doing something scary.
Wow, and Jarvis.
Oh Lord.
Oh man, we almost just saw an incredible interaction where Jarvis soul reads Autumn on trying to get a 3-mana planeswalker, leaves that to Spell Pierce instead, but Autumn is able to draw the 5th land, so they'll be able to play this Oko around a Spell Pierce. Brutal.
Oh man, this is hard to watch. I have to eat my words here. I was expecting Jarvis to soul crush Autumn in this matchup, but this looks brutal.
Yeah, it looks a little rough for Jarvis right now, but this can happen to any deck in Legacy that's sort of on the fair access of trying to play spells that they cast with their lands, right? Sometimes you just get mana screwed, even in the 40 lands deck. It happens, right? I don't know, maybe Jarvis only has 35 or something, but
well, the old name was like 43 lands, right?
yeah, those were very, very old intuition-based builds with the only win condition being a single Mishra's Factory. Those were dark times.
Oh.
Then they printed Thespian Stage, and the entire deck changed.
I mean, the interesting thing is lands typically actually doesn't have all that many green sources. So while lands may have a lot of lands, a lot of them don't actually produce mana.
Right. Like Dark Depths, Maze of Ith, Glacial Chasm, things of that nature.
Like I have definitely killed lands players before by just wasting their green source and hoping and praying that they don't have more.
Yeah. I've killed quite a few lands players with Nimble Mongoose while they're staring at me with a Maze of Ith in front of them. That's a nice feeling.
Oh yes. So the question is, if you're Jarvis and you draw the land, do you just jam loam and hope to dredge into the land? Or is that just not going? Oh, that's just not going.
No, I think Jarvis recognizes that he's not going to from under that Oko, and we see Autumn equalize things. So it's 1 match apiece now, and that means we have some more legacy ahead. That I'm going to be honest, that matchup did not go the way that I expected it to. I thought we were going to have some really, really long, grindy games, but they ended up being, maybe 4 or 5 turn affairs, something like that.
It was, yeah, that was definitely surprising. So, are you looking forward to see all the deck?
Absolutely. It's I don't know if I'd call it magic, but it's following the magic rule set, and I'm excited to see it happen.
But then if we see the check pile deck beat the dredge deck, then this is going to be great. I feel like Autumn is on a roll here. So some incredible things are happening.
Yeah, but we saw nothing but clean sweeps last week, and it seems like we got a battle on our hands right now. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in a few minutes with match 3. See you guys in a minute.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Legacy Premier League. I'm joined in the booth this time around by the great Gol Dukat. How are you doing this evening?
Great, and pretty excited to see what's going to be happening tonight. How are you doing?
Yes, I'm doing great, and I'm looking forward to, I think, what is our first set of 5 here where we've actually not had a sweep. So we are having some back and forth and some nice counter picking here. And I think Jarvis is going to get to bring something pretty strong to the table.
Yeah, it should be pretty exciting to see. I haven't seen exactly the deck lists yet, but
Whoop! Yeah, there we
right,
go.
here we
There we go.
Oh, just what we were talking about.
Yeah. So Jarvis has brought Dredge to the table. Dredge, I guess it's still recently has gotten some new toys, most notably Hogak. Although if you take a look at the mana base, there's something else spicy here. We have Fiery Islet.
Oh yeah, that the list that top aided Bologna by Andrea Gans, he had 3 fiery islets, and he was actually forgoing the Putrid Imp. But I heard Jarvis, he likes the Putrid Imp a lot, so he's still gonna be running it. Right?
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
like the ability to be able to just like cycle all of the stuff back into the graveyard after you've dredged it. That Putrid Imp offers.
Yeah, it's really convenient card, especially if your opponent passes with a blue mana up. So you think they have like Flusterstorm or Spell Pierce, or Force of Negation even. Just being a creature can be pretty convenient against stuff, and also like tax effects. Just a lot of synergy with it, and also Tats for Hogak. It's a creature for Icarid. Deck doesn't have a lot of black creatures, so
One
yeah.
thing that is awkward about the Fiery Islet, though, is that it does not cast all of your spells, unlike some of the other rainbow lands that you're used to seeing Dredge playing. So this can't cast, for example, the Putrid Imp that we were just talking about, or the Cabal Therapy.
Yeah, and if you take a look at the sideboard, there's actually 4 Chain of Vapors. I was actually playing a bit of this deck this week, and it's like called like Blue Red Dredge because the mana base you have so few multicolored sources that you can see on the sideboard. It's almost all just Chain of Vapors, which could make you a bit weaker to Chalice, arguably. And then in the main deck, he's running Putrid Imp, but I actually wasn't playing any Putrid Imp because I was playing like triple Fiery Islet. But I could definitely see Putrid Imp being the way. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much of an impact the Islet can make.
So we can run into some fringe scenario. Well, not even fringe, but a lot of times with Dredge, you need to Cabal Therapy yourself to get things going or to put a key card into the graveyard at an appropriate time, such as a Bridge from Below. And Fiery Islet doesn't really let you do that. Dredge is
Yeah.
also this sort of deck where in a game you might only play 2 lands or something like that.
Yeah, though with the London Mulligan now, you can mulligan very aggressively in a way which lets you build your mana base more aggressively. Because like before the London Mulligan, you'd have to keep a lot of more mediocre hands. But now when you have the London Mulligan, you can go to 4-5 and not worry as much about not getting a good hand. So in some ways, you're allowed to be more liberal with your deck building. But yeah, I found this deck's really tricky to play out. I was playing it a bit this week, and one of the hard reasons is like when you can go off turn 1, or if you should be slow in therapy yourself. Or there's, especially when you mulligan to 4 or 5, it can be hard to know if you should just like dredge with a Stinkweed Imp or try and take a natural draw step. It can be very difficult, like especially when it comes to like you don't have any more like looters, so you're just naturally dredging. It can be very difficult to know whether to naturally dredge or take a draw step. And Jarvis is going to be on the play.
And it looks like we're ready to go. So as far as this matchup goes, who's your money on?
I think I'm gonna say Dredge for sure. I'm gonna try and look at Autumn's list now because I haven't seen all the sideboard cards they have access to, but Containment Priest would probably
There's some graveyard hate, but perhaps not as much as they would like.
Denial Spell Bombs. I saw the last match. But definitely I would give a huge favorite to Jarvis. Oko can help actually pressure before because some of these Grixis control decks in the past, outside of Jace the Mind Sculptor, you really didn't have a lot to pressure. It's actually kind of interesting what Autumn might be trying to mulligan to, probably like Force of Will plus pressure like Oko. But yeah, because there's not a lot of great disruption and you don't have a lot of ways to apply pressure. But if you do like
Jarvis's hand though here is absolutely awesome.
Oh yeah, and no Fiery Islet.
I like this one.
Here we could see the Fiery Islet could be awkward, but luckily it's the City of Wrath, so everything cast. Yeah, this is Breakthrough plus LEDs, the combos.
I
Plus
also
Dredge
believe
Dredge.
we're seeing Autumn going down to 5 now.
Yeah. I mean, the matchup's so bad. Autumn almost has to mulligan to a Force of Will, basically, and just hasn't seen one yet. When you know you're against a combo deck, that's what you gotta do. But
Yeah,
luckily
it does not feel good to mulligan again here, but I think you have to. This, though, this might do
you got
something.
the Force. Though Dredge isn't just Belcher, so if Autumn can't find pressure, especially on 4 cards, I think Jarvis is still going to be a favorite, but it'll be interesting to see. It's definitely, I think, winnable. But it would be more winnable if Jarvis had to mull. Dredge is definitely a deck that mulls pretty aggressively, and Jarvis was fortunate to keep a good 7. So that a Force of Will isn't too punishing.
So what are you putting back here? Because on 4, I think this is trickier than it looks on the surface. Because you might be tempted to keep, say, like, Force, Brainstorm, Inquisition, Land, but is that actually going to leave you with enough resources to actually play a game of Magic? And I'm not sure that the answer is yes.
Yeah, I haven't played with Astrolabe yet, so I think it's definitely between like Astrolabe or Ponder, and it would just be the value of like the Ponder letting you have more manipulation versus Astrolabe perfectly fixing your mana. But the 5 color, pile and name
All right,
makes that
so
deck
this is a Cabal Therapy targeting Autumn,
Yeah, I think Jarvis.
which I think assuredly names Force of Will. Yep.
Yeah, when Autumn mulled that much, Jarvis is probably like, I'm pretty sure they're mulling to Force of Will. So.
Yeah, so now Jarvis will have the quote-unquote combo for next turn. So, do you want to explain what's going to happen?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna So you use the breakthrough, you cast it, then you discard your hand with a Lion's Eye Diamond, then you get to draw 4 cards, which lets you dredge. So this is like the combo, and now you're gonna be able to dredge almost 20 cards. If you hit Lions, Faithless Looting, you can do that too. But I also wanted to notice that Autumn actually kept the Brainstorm over the Ponder, but then Jarvis exactly having Therapy, naming the Force of Will meant that Ponder could have been slightly better, but Autumn probably mulled to 4 and was just like, yeah, let's not go too deep into this, But that could be an interesting spot if you're consider that the Force of Will gets therapied.
So we see an interesting pause from Jarvis here. He could opt to just careful study this turn and play things a little bit slower.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't blame him for doing that.
Yeah, you don't get a dredge, but then you don't discard your hand, and you don't have to fear if Autumn drew a Force of Will. And Autumn's on so few cards, maybe you just want to take your time. It's definitely, these are the kind of weird decisions with dredge, because what you care about is so weird compared to a normal Magic deck. I think I might do the careful study just because drawing 2 means that you're going to look for more looting cards to try and fight through a Force of Will, but maybe Jarvis is... It's pretty hard to know. Like, you have to ask yourself, how are you losing from here? And it's pretty hard to know how.
I don't know the scenario where Jarvis loses
from
or I mean, like, resolving a breakthrough.
Or I mean, like, before, like, when you're thinking about careful study versus breakthrough, and you're trying to think, how do I lose this game? Like, do I want to play it slow as careful study? And it's pretty hard to know. And it seems like
we're seeing a concession from Autumn. They did not want to wait for the rest of that turn to play out.
Yeah.
All right. So looking at Autumn's sideboard, we do see that they bring 2 spell bombs to the table, and that's wonderful. But then the graveyard hate dries up, and instead we're going to have to see things like Force of Negation come in, which are still very good in their own right.
Yeah, and Plague Engineer maybe can do some work.
It's awkward, though, because if you name, something like, whatever creature type Narcomoeba is, you end up killing it immediately, and that might end up creating zombies. So you can make them have 1/1 zombies instead, but if they have 10 of them, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's not like... It's much better against, like, Hogak, for example, but it's a kind of card that can sort of let you set up... It can, like, let you win a game, sort of, like a lot of the other cards in the deck are just so bad at interacting with dredge, but it's definitely not a very good card. But it's the kind of card that when you're playing dredge, it's like one of the cards that you think you could lose to. So yeah, and yeah, Jarvis is important.
Yep, Jarvis is just gonna whack that submit key.
Yeah, there's not very much in his sideboard that you would want. Sometimes when I play against like Miracle decks, you might want like Dread Return and an Iona to name like white or something, so that you don't get like Terminus a bunch of times. But with Oko now, even in the Miracles deck, like siding in Iona isn't even that good anymore because they can just make her into an elk. But it kind of like lets you diversify if you know your opponent's surgical and you're scared they're gonna like surgical your Icarids and your Narcomoebas, having Dread return plus Iona can try and give you a bit more threat density in the graveyard, but it's open deck list, so Jarvis knows what's up.
Yeah, and on that note, I think that's one of the things that makes Dredge such a great choice for this Iron Man format that we're doing. You get to see what hate cards you need to play around rather than playing the guessing game.
Yeah,
and I think that adds an extra element of power to the deck choice. You know, we've seen decks like Dredge and Hogak just absolutely tearing through people so far in the league, and I expect that to continue.
When your entire sideboard is just anti-sideboard cards, it helps a lot when it's open deck list. Your whole sideboard's just removal spells to sideboard cards, so...
Yeah. Okay, so here's one of the things that we were talking about earlier, where we have a Fiery Islet opener, but Cabal Therapies.
Yeah, this hand looks pretty bad to me. Well, when I play Dredge, I'm like smashing the mulligan button a lot, but maybe when it's more high stakes match, you think about it a bit more.
So if the Faithless Looting resolves, you're a huge favorite to win the game. But if it doesn't resolve, your hand does like literal nothing. Let's see, how many black producing lands does Jarvis actually have to draw to? 1, 3, 7.
Oh, it's worth noting so that you can also discard the Golgari Grave Troll to hand size. I mean, you probably wouldn't do it when your opponent plays a spell bomb, but like, let's say that's an option you could consider here. So like that's just something that you can do on 7 cards, and when you have a hand like this, you might want to consider it. But yeah, Jarvis is probably just thinking that if he draws a black source and he has 2 therapies, that's going to be very good, maybe to interrupt, take away. Oh, it looks like he's actually going for the discard to hand size. Yeah.
I think the discard to hand size makes a lot of sense since Autumn played out that spell bomb.
Yeah.
Note the Neo check pile deck, or whatever you want to call it, doesn't have perfect mana. So, for example, we see Autumn having Tundra, not being able to cast Veil of Summer or Inquisition at this time.
Yeah, the Inquisition. Yeah, that's unfortunate though. If a couple lands coming in here would be nice.
2 lands on top of the library, though.
Yeah.
So I think this Inquisition is actually very good for a number of reasons. Number one, it takes a card from Jarvis's hand. Number 2, it also will prevent another discard to hand size in the next turn cycle.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'm guessing the Inquisition ends up taking the LED, as that kind of is the degenerate enabler of this hand.
Yeah, that's true here.
But you have other ways you could pilot this. You have to consider the Inquisition in the context of this spell bomb that's in play. Yeah, so one of the things you could do is use the spell bomb to take out both of the dredgers that are currently in Jarvis's hand. You counter the Faithless Looting when it comes down, and then you just have to worry about a top decked like natural dredger in the future that will also cost Jarvis his entire hand.
Yeah. Definitely you can see the cost of the Fiery Islet here with the 2 therapies awkwardly stranded in hand. Definitely not going as as game 1.
Oh no. They've already clicked on Force of Negation, I was gonna say. It exiling is so important here for the flashback of Faithless Looting as this game goes long.
Yeah. That's a nice new printing from Modern Horizons, shaking up the very old format, the very old matchups in a new way. But Jarvis is going to have some time to rebuild, as Autumn doesn't have much going on now, though a few lands, so a lot of spells can apply pressure like Oko. The Force of Will, definitely one of the most anemic draws here.
So subtle thing about how they stacked their library. So previously Autumn had Underground Sea and Tropical Island, and they've left the Tropical Island for second, so it looks like they just naturally drew it for turn. and it sort of like disguises a little bit that Veil of Summer is being held up.
Yeah, they also wanted to cast the Inquisition last turn, but it was definitely interesting between like holding up Veil, casting Inquisition, holding up Black for Nile, Spellbomb, all those options. And here we can see the Fire Islet in action, but it looks like it whiffed a little bit. Yeah, that looks pretty bad. Like four lands and a blue spell is pretty brutal.
Yeah, we'll
You
see
really
if Jarvis is just going to dump this Stinkweed Imp into the graveyard ASAP.
Yeah,
off of
that's
the
really
other
bad.
LED.
Yeah, because Jarvis really wanted to hit like Bridge from Below or Narcoba or a Faceless Looting when you have the LED, or even a Dredger, but not hitting a Dredger's. It's all pretty bad because you don't even have a mana source, so you can't even cast your looting spells. So it's pretty rough. You might, yeah, it's pretty rough here. Maybe you'll hold it in case you draw Cephalid Coliseum is one of your good outs at this position. So that's what I mean when I say it can be hard to know when you want to just dredge versus when you want to take a random draw step. Because you could dredge 5 here, but you could also, it's not accomplishing that much. But it is pretty hard to know.
I think drawing the second Dredger's not too bad there. It means that if Jarvis decides to just crack his hand, crack the LED, he dumps 2 Dredgers into the graveyard, so he's not just dead if he whiffs on the first one.
Yeah. But as soon as you crack the LED, it's going to be very hard to take a natural draw step. So Jarvis has to decide if he wants to try and spike Cephalid Coliseum, basically, or looting, because he can't even cast like most of the blue cantrips. Or if he thinks just because naturally dredging is can be very slow, but drawing the Golgari Grave Troll and he has an Icarid in his graveyard, he might want to just go for it. Though
Autumn's not providing a lot of pressure currently, but 3 damage is going to add up pretty quickly.
Yeah, and the Snapcaster gets the cantrip to try and find more pressure. Yeah, Jarvis does go for it here. Decides to save the Stinkweed Imp with the low dredgers. It looks like pretty nice. No bridges. So I guess not
hitting
that.
The Narcomoeba without a bridge is just kind of medium.
Yeah, and especially when the Plague Engineer comes down.
Naming Illusion, which is one I've never named before.
Gotta clear the way for the blockers. Drawing Plow is also pretty nice. I mean, because imagine if there's bridges in the graveyard and you didn't draw Plow, it would be hard to actually get your attacks in this position. I mean, you could exile the bridges because if you name Illusion, they make a zombie, and then your Snapcaster attacks and they block with the zombie. Then you exile their bridges and you get in with the Strix, so you'd probably do it. But not hitting bridges is definitely brutal, and drawing Plow, it's looking very bad for Jarvis. If I had to look at what went wrong this game, I would probably say the Nile Spellbomb had devastating effects, perhaps.
So just to talk about another like decision tree here, Autumn also could have chosen not to play Plague Engineer, just use Swords to Plowshares to get the Narcomoeba out of the way, crash in for 3 while still holding up Veil of Summer to stop a flashback Cabal Therapy in the future.
Yeah, probably it's definitely hard to know for sure, but probably just like want to get the creature on the board to just start attacking with everything, and also that way you can save the Plow for later because there's not that many 1 toughness. I mean, obviously the Icarids, but I mean with the bridge from below, like 1 toughness blockers, is mostly comprised of the Narcomoebas, and it's pretty brutal that Jarvis hit a second Narcomoeba without any bridges because it would just be free zombies. A lot of free zombies also because the Icarid makes free zombies. So, and also yeah, the Force of Negation stopped the flashback of the looting, which is actually pretty relevant here.
So note the Cabal Therapy is targeting Autumn.
Interesting.
Jarvis still has 2 Stinkweed Imps in graveyard, so I think that makes sense.
I wonder what they would name, because it looks like Autumn's considering Force in here, but it would be pretty hard to name Swords to Plowshares or Veil of Summer, and like obviously Forces. It's definitely hard, but yeah, I think having the looting be exactly negated so you can't flash it back was pretty brutal, and just not hitting bridges for a long time. Just a lot of stuff for Spelling the Doom here. So you can see it's definitely winnable for the blue decks. And I guess it's interesting when you have 4 colors of mana, which blue source do you want to,
Yeah, that is exactly what I was thinking about.
Yeah. Though I guess most of your black spells are removal or discard, so you can be like, I'll just tap one of the other ones. Because white casts a fairy and the green casts Oko. Suppose.
So I don't know that you really need any more creatures.
Well,
So
you
Autumn
might.
will be able to crash in, put Jarvis to 9, and then it's a 2-turn clock. I guess the only consideration is if you keep a Strix, if Jarvis is able to make some zombies and clog up the board, having a Strix means that you still close out the game faster.
Yeah, I think you want to keep the Strix because the Astrolabe, it's not really fixing your mana. Your opponent doesn't have Wasteland here or any way to interact with your mana. And you have Autumn has 3 mana here, so they might as well just use their mana to get a creature on the board because both Astrolabe and Strix just draw a card. So it's almost like a free creature in a way. And if you drew a spell that costs 2 mana to cast, you'd be happy because Autumn has so much mana. They're probably just mostly concerned about not being able to spend it all. We'll see if
Jarvis needs some sick flips here.
Yeah.
A bridge from below and another imp. I expect we're going to see a draw step, Swords of Plowshares on that. Yeah.
And the Oko is just gonna spell the doom. I can't imagine. Here's where you need some crazy dread return outs. Like, yeah, but
So I don't think Jarvis is 100% dead. So this turn hits him down to 6. If he can generate enough zombies next turn that he can wall the 3 creatures that don't fly, he can actually live for a couple turns.
yeah, and maybe get a Hogak in play if he like dredges the Sinkweed Imp and hits like 3 bridges, Narcomoeba, Hogak. Maybe we could see. And you see, yeah, the Strix are doing their best work to become Elks. Pretty powerful. Well, we got a Hogak, but not enough
And
bridges.
a Narcomoeba that's going to die immediately to only produce 1 zombie, though. Don't think 1 zombie gets Jarvis anywhere.
Yeah. And that was a 7 that Jarvis kept that didn't get there.
Yeah. So again, some awkwardness with a non-rainbow land there, but I think the combination of the Nihil Spellbomb in the opening hand plus the Force of Negation for the Faithless Looting really let them sort of get in control of this game.
Yeah, it's also interesting that Autumn doesn't want the Sylvan Library. When you're against combo decks, that can be like pretty good, but I guess Dredge is a deck that pressures your life total with the Icarans, and also there isn't that much space. Like most of the cards in Autumn deck seem like pretty decent. But like when I play Delver, I love deciding Sylvan Library against Dredge, but
Jarvis thinking long and hard about his decision to not mulligan any cards, and looks like not sideboard any cards. Looks like he's going to run that back.
Autumn might have been thinking about, I was gonna say might have been thinking about the Pyroblast, but I forgot Autumn's one was on the draw, so it's terrible on the draw. It's more like when you're on the play, you might consider it. Oh, this one's pretty bad, but here you can see Putrid Imp and Fire Islet working together, so maybe he'll keep it.
Yeah, if this Putrid Imp resolves, Jarvis's hand is amazing. The ability to go Putrid Imp, dump 2 dredgers into the graveyard, as well as 2 bridges, and then follow it up with a dredge off of a land is pretty strong. So Jarvis indeed does keep, and Autumn is thinking about their opening hand, which has been a mulligan. What do you think about this as a 6?
It's pretty difficult. It's so much more difficult on the draw to keep, like the discard spells are so much less effective, and it's hard to know how much the Plague Engineer and the Ponders are going to do. And past turn 1, all your disruption's so much less effective, so the Ponders finding Force of Will past turn 1 is much less effective than having a Force of Will turn 1. So outside of Nihil Spellbombs, the Ponders don't have a lot of good stuff to find. So I think it's a pretty close choice. It's just because the 6 Force of Wills in your deck are effective on turn 1, and then they're still effective past that, but they're not gonna turn 1's when Jarvis is probably gonna do his scariest thing. So it's not like you can be happy finding a Force of Will and actually bottoming the Plague Engineer Pretty interesting.
I feel like this was probably a reluctant keep.
Yeah. Maybe remembering the mulligan to 4 in game 1, not wanting to do it again. It's definitely a close, definitely a tough decision. Yeah, I would have been tempted to bottom the Inquisition and keep the Plague Engineer because you have all these ponders to cast. So the Inquisition might be kind of hard to line up, and then the Plague Engineer can be like a catch-up mechanic in a way. But I'm not sure. It's definitely hard to approach Dredge versus these blue, and like trying to know what lines up because Dredge isn't playing normal Magic. You have to line up your spells in a weird way. So we'll see.
So here we're seeing the discard into Dredge. No need to just dump everything in there. Jarvis can kind of play this patiently, not expose too many cards to the graveyard at any given time.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna see this land cracked and 5 more cards hitting the graveyard.
Okay, that's pretty
decent
good.
ones at that.
Yeah, because the first one was pretty bad, but now we have Narcomoeba plus Therapy, and we have 2 bridges, so that we can make 4 zombies. And see, that was a pretty good hit. Hitting Narcomoeba plus Therapy lets you use your 2 bridges right away.
Yeah, this is great for Jarvis. So what do you want to name with this Cabal Therapy?
It's really hard to know because so many of the cards are so bad in the deck. It depends if Autumn kept or not, because then you might be more inclined to name Nile Spellbomb. Maybe Brainstorm, just because it's a card they play 4 of and helps them find Nile Spellbomb. Looks like he actually named Plow.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be Swords to Plowshares, Spellbomb, or Brainstorm.
Yeah, because Autumn already played a Ponder, so it would be like Brainstorm to try and stop us finding a Spellbomb or Plows itself. But yeah, it seemed to
Brainstorm,
work out
Force,
well.
Ponder off of the cantrip here.
Yeah, and generally when playing Cabal Therapy, it's pretty nice to name Brainstorm aggressively because it's one of the cards that lets them.
Oh, wow. Just throwing in the towel there. Dredge comes in. It's the bad guy. It does what you want it to do.
Yeah, Hogek seems to have a very good track record so far.
Wow. All right, so Jarvis now up 2-1 over Autumn in our set. And we're going to start prepping for that next round. But before we do so, we have some stuff to give away. Hey, type Card Hoarder in chat if you want to try and win this sweet playmat. So are you using Card Hoarder services?
Well, I use all the Card Hoarder bots, they're when buying and selling cards. They actually have a very convenient one that stocks all the standard cards because it can be hard. It can be annoying, when you're trying to trade and get your cards, but they don't have their cards, so you keep trading different bots. They actually have a bot that only stocks standard cards, which is convenient because standard cards can be tough to find in the bots.
Yeah, and I actually usually sell my ticks to Card Hoarder, like when I'm looking to offload. They usually have a pretty good rate, and they're pretty fast about actually getting you money. So I'm super, super in love with Card Hoarder services.
Yeah. The next match, it's going to be Dark Depths against Dredge. I think that Dark Depths is definitely favored in this matchup, but not like 90% or anything crazy.
Yeah,
do you have any?
We're gonna have some goldfish speed mattering there, where both decks are gonna have a little bit of an ability to go and interact with each other via things like discard. But it might be a race of who can produce the 20 power first.
Yeah, though I actually had a very sad game this week. I was playing against Dark Depths as Dredge, and they didn't do anything crazy. All they did, they cast 3 Vampire Hexmage, and it kind of shut down the whole deck because the threats are just Icarid and Bridge from Below. So they just used the Vampire Hexmage to exile all my bridges, and then they had it blocking my Icarids, and you don't have that many black creatures. And then I just had Narcomoeba, so all they did was cast 3 Vampire Hexmage.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Congratulations to Dungeon Shade for winning our raffle here. Please message Julian, it's Julian, to go and claim your prizes. We will be back momentarily as we're going to go ahead and swap out some commentary teams and get the next decks booted up. See you again soon. Give me that whoosh.
Hey, welcome back to the Legacy Premier League. And we have joining us one of the GOATs, Eric Landon himself.
Hey, what's up, Daniel?
And it looks like we're going to be covering one of your favorite decks, Dark Depths and Stretch.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Yeah, and we'll see. The graveyard deck that doesn't use Grizzlebrand. See how it goes.
So what's the record right now, Daniel? I watched, but I wasn't watching that carefully. I think Autumn is up 2-1.
I think Jarvis is up 2-1 because Jarvis just won last game.
Okay.
The Autumn? No, Jarvis won. Yeah. The games were so quick that I was like, who won the last one? They're all like 30 seconds, Dredge versus Four Color. But yeah. Oh, and here we get to see the beautiful Once Upon a Time making an appearance. And I actually think Once Upon a Time is huge in these depth decks because, first of all, their mana base is so bad. If you look at the actual green sources, it's like 8 green lands and like Mox Diamond. So Once Upon a Time gets you more green lands and also gives you more speed because you don't have Ponder and stuff. It just finds all your best cards. It's just so good in this deck. It finds all your creatures.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because my initial thought was that Once Upon a Time was actually not that great in these decks. But you mentioned that their mana base is so bad that they can find their colored sources. And I think I agree with you there. I hadn't even thought about that because recently, after playing the deck a little bit myself, I found that attacking their colored mana was one of the best ways to beat the deck. With Delver, that is, because I have Wastelands and some other tools. But yeah, so Once Upon a Time, making it so that they can find like even just like a second green source or you know, some of their combo pieces. I think that is a good tool to have. It's interesting.
Also,
it's interesting that they're only playing 3 of them though.
Yeah, I like 4, but maybe 3 is interesting so you don't draw 2.
Yeah, because it's not a tutor. So like when you're casting it for 2 mana, then the Sylvan Scrying is better because it actually tutors. So for 2 mana, it's not that great. But for 0, yeah. So I guess that's the reason to run.
The reason when you have crop rotation, a lot of the time it just needs like a generic piece to go along with your other tutors. Like one thing is it gives you speed because you don't have that many ways. Like Hexmage, Urborg, and Dark Depths, when you draw them naturally, they give you so much speed to turn 2 or turn 3 kill. So Once Upon a Time helps you draw them more to give you the more speed.
Cool. And Jarvis is playing Dredge again. So how do you find this matchup to be?
I think it's pretty favored for the depth deck, but it's definitely not 100% favorite because the Dredge deck doesn't have that many ways to interact with 2020s, but you do have Narcomoebas. So I think it'll come down to like whether Autumn can draw like crop rotations is a really important card. And like Hexmage sacrificing itself to exile the bridges is like really important.
Yeah, I agree. I've found that this matchup, not 100%, but it might be about as close to 100% as legacy matchups go, because they don't the dredge deck doesn't have a lot of ways to interact, and Hexmage exiles bridges, and Narcomoeba is the only way to block, and then they also have Sajiri Step for that. So there's just so many ways for the depth deck to punch through.
Looks like they're ready. But one thing I will say about bad matchups, playing Dredge, you mill half your deck on turn 1, so a matchup can be, so bad as to what your net draw is. Obviously, crop rotation bog contracts stat, but Dredge, you can still, if you have LED and breakthrough and a Dredger, you can dredge like half your deck on turn 1, and you always have that.
Yeah. So Jarvis is on the play here. Jarvis's hand for a Dredge hand it's fine. It's not exciting. It's not explosive, but it has multiple tools to do the thing that Jarvis would want to do in Dredge, which would be like to play a Putrid Imp and then have some looting effects to go along with it. So I can't imagine that he mulligans this as a 6. Autumn kept their 7.
That looks pretty.
Yeah, fairly unexciting 7, but with Hexmage and the combo.
Now it's a turn 2 kill.
That's like a pretty good draw.
Order rotation.
Yeah. So I guess, what do you expect from Autumn here?
I would expect to start by casting Once Upon. Well, it's pretty.
There's not really a reason to cast it now.
Yeah, because maybe it reveals that you have what you have to. So maybe you don't want to cast it because you kind of want to play turn 2. So I guess you're kind of because the thing is, if you play Dark Depths, then it kind of makes it obvious that you have Hex Mage. But if you play Urborg, then they can use that counter after Gemstone. So maybe Autumn doesn't want to play Urborg. I think I would play Urborg because if you play Dark Depths, it's like pretty obvious to name Hex Mage. Though even though Jarvis will probably name Hex Mage anyway. You could play. Oh, it looks like they're actually gonna play the Depths. Yeah, because I guess
Yes.
they figure Urborg is also pretty obvious in that way. But Autumn
Yeah,
did keep
and
7.
if Jarvis does manage to snipe the Hex Mage, there was always that once upon a time to find another one.
Oh yeah,
And
that's so true. That's actually a huge reason not to hit it. He has one of the best cards you could hit is another Hex Mage, so that makes a lot of sense. But Jarvis is gonna have a lot of looks here out of therapy.
Yeah, Jarvis's hand is looking pretty good. He's gonna be able to dredge a bunch right now. It looks like he hit a therapy, which also is pretty big, as well as the Narcomoeba. So, despite Autumn's hand being pretty good, it looks like Jarvis is gonna be able to make a game out of this at the very least.
Yeah, it's gonna hinge a lot on the Once Upon a Time, much like when it was legal and standard, and so much of the game was what does it hit in turn 1, which can feel kind of weird, but
Autumn also has the potential hit of a Bajuka Bog, which would be pretty insane.
oh yeah, that's true. Though at least Jarvis would have a decent amount of power in play. Is that 3 bridges? Yeah, a decent amount of power. If Jarvis hit a second therapy, it could have really just gone off. And that's what you can say about Dredge when it has a bad matchup. Is it's very powerful deck. That's part of the reason I think trying it, even though I lose all the time with it. It's so powerful.
All right, so we'll see this power of Once Upon a Time now.
Yeah, named Hex Mage.
And there's another Hex Mage.
Though it's gonna exile all the bridges because we do have an Archemy with a chump block.
Yeah, well, I think that's probably game because Autumn can make the 2020 exile all the bridges, and they have the step in hand to punch through any Narcomoebas, and that's the only way. That's the only potential.
Yeah, maybe
way to
Hogak
return.
somehow. I think it would be like Hogak plus a bunch of Icarids. But Jarvis only gets to.
But there's not going to be any blocking on Jarvis's side this turn.
And I was gonna say if Jarvis hit the second therapy, it could be interesting to try and hit name Once Upon a Time because all you care about is Hex Mage. So like first you would name Once Upon a Time and then you name Hex Mage because that's the main thing you care about. And that spot you could also consider like basically that. The only other way they can kill you turn 2 is with Mox Diamonds. So you could maybe name Crop Rotation or maybe Mox Diamond if you think you're sandbagging it, though that would be pretty weird. So
yeah, the second theory probably would have done it, but as you can see,
I'm sorry, I was listening to the Jerry 7 hand. I was mostly just looking at that Hex Mage so I see all the other cards in hand.
All right, so Autumn has some interesting choices on the sideboard I'm not used to seeing. Well, the first thing that stands out I'm talking about is Iona. You don't see that often.
Oh, I think that's in Jarvis's.
Oh, that's what I meant. Jarvis's Dredge sideboard.
Iona's. Yeah. So we'll see. Yeah, probably Ashen Rider coming in.
Yeah, Ashen Rider's great. The Iona, I saw him pull it to the side, but I don't really think he wants it.
Yeah, it doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Maybe he wants it to eat Vampire Hex Mage, like exiling all your bridges. Maybe it doesn't seem very good, especially because Autumn could just have Caracas in their deck.
Yeah.
But
and Autumn looks what is Autumn? Autumn's bringing in a Plague Engineer. We can see Plague Engineer is interesting. Because it can name like Icarid or what is Narcomoeba? Yeah, whatever Narcomoeba is. Illusion. So it's like a reasonable tool. It's a little bit slow, but if you're able to exile their graveyard, which Autumn has many spells that do that with Crop Rotation as well as Elvish Reclaimer and just like a natural Bajuka Bog, then getting to that point in the game isn't that unreasonable. Yeah, so many cards in Autumn deck exile the graveyard because you have 4 Reclaimers, 4 Crop Rotations, and then you have the Bog, and then you have Once Upon a Time that can find the Bog, and then you have Surgicals. But yeah, Elvish Reclaimer is so strong because if they play that turn 1 against you in your graveyard deck, they can just get the Bog turn 2 and like it's not like you have removal spells to play in your graveyard decks. Like it's incredibly difficult to play against Reclaimer when you're relying on your graveyard. Yeah, that Reclaimer is so good in the deck. Yeah, I mean that first game was a good example of how lopsided this matchup is, because Autumn's hand was basically a bunch of lands and a spell that got discarded by therapy, and then a second random spell, and the game was over on turn 2.
Though if Autumn whiffed on the thing and only had a turn 3 depths, then or a turn like if Autumn whiffed, it could have been Jarvis could have won, so it got pretty close.
Yeah, that was about as good as Jarvis's game could have gone, and so it gave Jarvis a chance there for Autumn to whiff on that Once Upon a Time, and then Jarvis probably would have won.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it looks like Jarvis is also bringing in the Lotus Petals for more speed.
Yeah.
And the 4 Chain of Vapors, so we got some bounce up in there.
Yeah.
It's funny how Chain of Vapors, like, it's not worse removal, but it's like not hard removal in most matchups. But then in this matchup, it just joins the plowshares. Though I find it was actually awkward. I played the Dredge Mirror, and we both had ley lines, so it was awkward to cast Chain of Vapor on their ley line because they can sack their lands to bounce your ley line. Like, if both players have a ley line and you have a Chain of Vapor, it's pretty awkward to bounce their ley line.
Oh yeah, because then they both.
Kind of tough.
So
Yeah.
Jarvis's hand here is once again is like excellent, but unless he has the heads up to like start with Cabal Therapy, naming exactly crop rotation, he's going to be in a lot of trouble. And even if he does, he's still going to be facing a Reclaimer, which is basically still a bog on a quick bog. So it's going to be really, really hard for Jarvis to win this one.
Yeah, it's looking pretty rough. Much looks like he's just gonna be aggressive and start with a careful study. Those kids, even if you name crop rotation, you could still die very quickly to a dark.
Right. So that's what I agree with his play here. It's just like hope they don't have crop rotation and just have a really explosive turn 1.
Well, missed on looting, but this looks pretty decent. Though I guess it's not
it's
that great.
The bridges are, going to give him some power here.
Yeah.
He's probably going to
Next
name
Icarus.
crop rotation or hex mage. Yeah, name the crop rotation. So again, we might have a game here.
And he could even sack one of the zombies to take the Elvish Reclaimer. Like, because what else are you gonna do? Like it, yeah.
Yeah, and so Autumn's gonna need to find access to either a hex mage or a stage or another crop rotation or even just a bog off the top. All of those would be pretty amazing.
Or Once Upon a Time.
Yeah.
Or yeah, but that's one thing you can see. Once Upon a Time, like Sylvan Scrying would be too slow to be relevant in a matchup like this, or Once Upon a Time in so many of the fast matchups. It really helps your goldfish speed. Yeah. I mean, we saw it in game 1. It was like if that was a Sylvan Scrying, Autumn would have just almost lost the game.
Yeah. And so Once Upon a Time it makes this turn a little interesting for Autumn. Are they going to play to potentially draw one or play around a therapy? It looks like they're going to cast their Mox Diamond, which I guess if it gets taken by a therapy, that would be pretty bad. So it makes sense that they're going to go for it.
Yeah, and I guess they might have also been debating if they want to discard the Jerry step to get through an Icarid or another land, but maybe they like Plague Engineer to name Illusion.
That's true, yeah. I would have been inclined to keep the step, but yeah, the fact that there's a Plague Engineer to name Illusion, that's a good point.
Yeah, and you want your lands untapped, like you kind of want your depths and then your 2 black lands, I guess. And it looks like Jarvis hit another therapy and an Archimedes. So let's see if he names Plague Engineer now. I guess.
Yeah.
Well, you could maybe
like close to the only name is Plague Engineer, or Once Upon a Time, because you don't really respond.
Veil of Summer.
Yeah, I can see him naming Once Upon a Time as well, because if he casts Once Upon a Time, there's almost no chance that Autumn responds.
Or he could name himself too.
Yeah.
Because but it's kind of, I think Once Upon a Time makes some sense, yeah, because well, the thing is, if Autumn drew it, they're pretty likely to cast it, because then they can cast Elvish Reclaimer if they find Elvish Reclaimer off Once Upon a Time.
That's true. And
so that's why, yeah, he actually did name Once Upon a Time, because I think they're pretty likely to do that. So now we'll see. Autumn might just name Zombie to keep I think that makes the most sense, because that way your Plague Engineer can block all their zombies, And if you name Illusion, then they're just going to make 2 zombies, and then you're getting beat down for like 1,000,000 damage. But yeah, so I don't know if I think I might have named myself Golgari Grave Troll so that you can dredge more. Because you can't even dredge your Stinkweed Imp because you're Icarid, you're going to exile it to Icarid.
Well, I could see Jarvis just dredging this turn and not getting an Icarid, but yeah,
It's nice is because you have 2 bridges in your graveyard in particular.
that's
So
true.
like if you named your own Golgari Wave Troll, now you could dredge it, and it's definitely hard. It's also funny because you definitely could name Plague Engineer, as weird as it sounds, because there's not that many things that Autumn could have drawn that they would not have cast at that point in the game.
Yeah, like I was saying, I think it was actually between Plague Engineer and Once Upon a Time if I was on Jarvis's side of the table.
I mean, there's definitely a chance Autumn doesn't cast Once Upon a Time, but I think because of Elvish Reclaimer, it would be pretty hard not to. But yeah, it looks like you can definitely see Dredge can get some work in. And yeah, you can see actually he didn't return the Icarid, and you can see the Plague Engineer is actually doing a decent job at keeping the zombies at bay.
Yeah, and that Dredge basically missed, so Icarid's not coming back, and there's no Dredge this turn.
Yeah, and you can see, yeah, like if he named his own goal, maybe have been convenient for him in some ways, because Autumn has a pretty unlucky situation here, or not unlucky, but like pretty bad situation here. You don't want to be in this situation, and Jarvis can't really take advantage of it.
What do you think about Jarvis's attacks here? Dealing 2.
I think I'm not sure why, like, I don't know if you can beat a crop rotation here. So I don't know if leaving back Narcomoeba makes sense, but maybe it does. Jarvis probably like breathing a sigh of relief.
There's the stage.
Yeah. And it's worth noting that the Sugary Step is already discarded, so can't use that potion damage. But yeah. Oh, that's a nice one. So I guess that now you can flashback the looting, and then you can, go off.
Yeah, it's possible that Jarvis is going to be able to find some more Narcomoebas, which could blank enough attacks with the 2020 since the Jury Step's gone.
Yeah, now Jarvis.
Yeah, this is going to be quite an explosive turn.
Yeah, imagine if you found a Chain of Vapor plus Lotus Petal, or like, not Lotus Petal, but imagine if you like drew a Chain of Vapor, he sandbagged it. That would be so troll. So I see 1, 2 in the 3 in the graveyard. Yeah. Well, we could definitely see the cascading effects of the not therapy on yourself. Like it seemed kind of irrelevant in the moment, but then it kind of hurt Jarvis there a little bit.
And also discarding the Sugary Step. I mean, this game would be over right now if Sugary Step was still.
But like you needed the lands to cast Plague Engine. The Autumn they didn't have Wasteland back then, so they needed to have the Swamp and Bayou in play to cast Plague Engineer in the first place.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
So Autumn's almost certainly going to Wasteland that Coliseum here.
Oh yeah.
Meaning, so Jarvis should have just one dredge of, is it 5 or 6 to hit more Narcomoebas.
Yeah, the beautiful thing is when you play dredge, sometimes you can be like you could just take a natural draw to see, because you could hit Chain of Vapor, you could hit a dredge, you could hit like another breakthrough, or you could hit like Narcomoeba and just hardcast it. So there's definitely some consideration to taking, but that's why I don't like playing dredge. It's always like, oh, do I dredge or do I take a draw? Because if you trick a draw step, it can be equivalent to like 4 dredges, but you could also just draw something terrible. So it depends how far behind Jarvis thinks they are. So Jarvis only has 17. Oh, sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say he has to hit an Narcomoeba or the game's over.
Yeah.
And if he hits the Narcomoeba, then he wins. So I think you just dredge, because that's like 5 looks at a Narcomoeba rather than just the 1.
Yeah. I was also gonna say he only has 17 cards in his library, so library is very. So it's not like it's not like he has 30 cards in his library to hit the Narcomoebas in there. So I think he actually was a pretty good chance to win, and there you could see it's not actually that lopsided. I mean, Jarvis came pretty close to winning.
Ooh, I didn't see this line.
I didn't see that was in the graveyard. We got some
Yeah,
sick
we
lines.
both missed that. That's probably actually going to be. We're going to game 3 then.
Yeah, and Jarvis actually had the choice between return Stinkweed Imp or return Narcomoeba.
Okay.
So
I didn't see that. I didn't see
Yeah.
the dread return, and now the game's over. So we're going to game 3.
yeah. Yeah, I didn't see it at all. In my head, it was just like another black spell, like a Stinkweed Imp.
Yeah.
But that was definitely Jarvis's draw was pretty strong there. Turn 1, if you remember, it was turn 1. He already had two bridges and went before Autumn even played a land. Discard your crop rotation.
Yeah, and that game kind of showed also that even when Dredge has like a bad matchup, the deck is extremely explosive. And if the opponent with their good matchup against Dredge stumbles even just a little bit, Dredge can just kill you.
Yeah, and also Dredge has Cabal Therapy to interact and can go off like turn 0, as you can see there. Like even though crop rotation is so good, the Cabal Therapy just came down. I mean, that's the thing about Dredge. It's like no matter what your matchup, they can dredge half their deck on turn 1, make a bunch of zombies, and discard their hand. So it can only be so bad. And I see Autumn was actually looking at the fatal pushes there, like thinking about those annoying Narcomoebas.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe I want this. So it's pretty interesting. Oh wow, yeah.
I think I like the fatal pushes. I mean, I don't know. It's a little awkward because it kind of feels bad just like killing Dredge's creatures when you're actually just killing a creature and they're making zombies. But if it's a lethal, if you have like lethal fatal pushes,
Yeah,
that seems
it's kind of like
seems a little better.
get rid of your flyer.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to be certain here of exactly the value of all the spells. You could definitely consider trimming a land, but I guess with 4 Mox Diamonds, you don't really want to do it as much maybe, but definitely when I play depths, a lot of times people say, cut your Caracas or cut your whatever. But I guess there could also be potential Hogak. Oh yeah,
so we got Autumn on the play here. Wow, this is an interesting one because obviously Elvish Reclaimer's really good, but getting both crop rotations therapy is going to also be kind of bad. But I guess if you have Reclaimer in play, you don't really care that much about losing your crop rotations.
Yeah, because you have so many cards that sacrifice them. And also it's not like if they therapy you, like you're not gonna be able to have anything great to crop rotation into on turn 1, like maybe Urborg. Actually no, you can go crop rotation for Urborg, but then they would probably name Hexmage. Because you could actually this hand can actually kill turn 2. Because you can go crop rotation, get Urborg, and then play the Verdant, crop rotation, get Dark Depths, and then play Hexmage. So you actually have a turn 2 kill here. But
And
if
Jarvis
you get
has Chain of Vapor. So this will be a really good game, I think. Yeah, Jarvis's hand is like kind of weak, but has Chain of Vapor in it.
yeah, but Elvish Reclaimer is so annoying because like usually when you play against hopefully they go all in. And Elvish Reclaimer is like the ultimate like I can't go that all in because I'm just gonna have Elvish Reclaimer in play.
Yeah. And Jarvis hitting a Coliseum there was also pretty good. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
this will be a pretty good game, but we'll see.
Yeah, Coliseum is nice.
Both players have really good hands.
Yeah, and Land's a decent draw there, but Autumn can actually make can make it to 2020 right now. You can double crop rotation, and you can get Urborg, and you can get Dark Depths, and you can spam Hexmage. But Autumn is aware that Jarvis does have four of the thingies, and you could actually just play it slow and get a Bajuka Bog, but you only have 1 Bog in your deck. So.
How many Vapor Snap or Chain of Vapors is Jarvis playing?
4.
4. Okay. Wow.
But,
yeah, so I guess with Autumn having open deck lists, I can't imagine that they don't play around it then.
Yeah, they could also go crop rotation, get Wasteland, because the Dredge deck's infamous for being low on land, and easily always cycles. So that's one. If you wanted to maximally disrupt Jarvis, you could go, Wasteland you, Bog you. So it'll be pretty interesting. It's always hard to know when you want to exile the Dredgers versus trying to exile like the Icarids or Narcomoebas.
Yeah, I find to err on the safe side, I don't go after the Dredgers that often.
Yeah, I used to like almost never go after the Dredgers. Playing sometimes you like pray like please don't go after my Dredgers, but so it's like it's not like 100% obvious, but Yeah, I guess it's more obvious. Like sometimes like I mulligan to 2 and I discard a Golgari Grave Troll. They don't surgical this. I guess it's obvious in those cases. But yeah, Colosseum's nice, but looks like yeah, Autumn's playing it patiently, just passing, not even doing wasteland plays. Just saying, yeah. Pretty interesting what Autumn's plan wants to be now.
Yeah, it's interesting to both players. I'm not really sure what either. There's going to be some jockeying back and forth here. I think so. Jarvis has to play on the onboard Reclaimer, which can get Bajuka Bog. Autumn, basically, it's their game to lose, so they need to play around Chain of Vapor. But they don't want to wait too long because then Jarvis, can I don't know. I think Autumn's probably pretty far ahead here, but I'm not really sure what line I would take in their spot.
Yeah, because you always have the looming Jukabog, and you can keep hitting land drops, and your average draw steps are arguably better, and you have a better late game in a way. Because also, if you draw a discard spell, then you can clear the Chain of Vapor.
Yeah, it's a little awkward because I think they would like to just like play to the point where they have the combo +1 land up for crop rotation for step, but then there's always the potential of a therapy coming across the board and breaking up your double crop rotation.
Oh wow, looks like Autumn might be doing something. Let's see.
I imagine Autumn gets a Dark Depths here.
Oh, because it's on the upkeep.
Oh, it's on Jarvis's upkeep. Interesting.
Yeah. Because they might be like, no Stinkweed him for you. Because they're probably thinking, well, let's say Jarvis Amoeba Bridge. That's kind of bad because like the thing is, let's say Jarvis hits an Archamoeba, then they can all of a sudden therapy you. So maybe Autumn wants to prevent that from happening. So it's kind of interesting. They also might be like, well, what if they activate CM in response? What if they do all this stuff? Yeah, looks fetching a land. That's serious.
I think in Autumn's position here, I would just let Jarvis do whatever he wants. I would end of turn, get a Depths, and play a Hex Mage, and leave up crop rotation for step and for Bajuka Bog.
I think what Autumn's fearing, if they're doing this line, is they're scared that Jarvis is gonna like flip an Archamoeba and then be able to therapy them. Like I think that's the reason you'd want to act here, is you're basically scared, like, oh my god, what if they hit like an Archamoeba? I mean, I guess then you could exile bog them in response to them, but then they get to keep their Stinkweed imp. So maybe you're just like, I don't know. I guess I would probably, I don't know. I can't think well enough right now, but
I mean, it's really complicated.
Yeah.
I think that if they hit a really good dredge, so like if they hit a couple Narcomoebas, then you can bog them. Oh wait, so they went for the depths on the upkeep. That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was like a strategic play, or maybe there was kind of weird time to do it. It's hard to tell. Yeah, I think that was probably just like, maybe they were like, oh, I don't think getting bog makes sense, because maybe they're like, well, if they get Narcomoeba, now I can just crop rot in response. Or maybe there was some cosmic reason that we're not aware of.
Maybe they're baiting. I have no idea. I'll be really curious
also it's
to see
kind
what
of
they say about it afterwards.
Yeah, maybe it's kind of late. Well, I guess now Autumn's in LA, but considering I think the arena MC's tomorrow, so they're it's pretty easy maybe to, but also there might be a reason too.
I'm guessing there's probably a reason to the play.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now this bog will clear the graveyard and basically clear the Colosseum as well. And what do you think Jarvis names? I bet he still just names crop rotation since he has Chain of Vapor in his hand.
I think, well, you could maybe name Hexmage because it gives speed, otherwise they have to use Stage. And also Hexmage can exile your bridge from below us. But yeah, crop rotation makes sense, I guess, too. Ooh, yeah, because now you get a flash it back and you get a name Hexmage. It's awkward that there's no bridges in the graveyard for, but well, actually,
well, this is now I'm wondering if Autumn will actually end up playing around this Chain of Vapor, because their hand is starting to look like, to play around Chain of Vapor, they're gonna need 2 more lands.
Yeah, they might have been punished a bit by not casting Hexmage and just, but I guess then it would be obvious that you have. It was definitely a tough line. But Autumn still has a 3/4 in play. Like that's what's so annoying about this Reclaimer. It's like it's just attacking you.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, that's it.
Oh no. Oh no.
Jarvis therapied himself. And
Well,
that's
yeah, this is going to be bad news for Jarvis.
Well, it's not game, but yeah, that's bad news.
It's going to be pretty close game. I'm not sure what Jarvis can dredge now to get out of this. I guess he has
a
Settler Coliseum. But what could he hit? I mean, we have onboard lethal with.
Oh yeah, it's the Jerry step. Well, he could just maybe take a natural.
Yeah, he has to take a natural draw and hit Chain of Vapor.
Let's see if he does it. He's like, screw this. Yeah.
I think he was supposed to take.
Oh yeah, or Putrid Imp to block. Or yeah.
Can Putrid Imp block if there's 7 cards in your graveyard?
Or maybe he could have cast Stinkweed Imp.
I don't think Putrid Imp can block.
Oh, okay. Sorry. But also, yeah, maybe there was some way where he could cast the Stinkweed Imp and then have Stinkweed Imp plus Dark Amoeba. But yeah, maybe he can hope that Autumn sided out to Jerry Step, though it seems unlikely considering that
seems extremely unlikely.
Yeah, but sometimes you gotta, if you think that's the best chance to win, you gotta play it to your ass, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, it can be annoying when you're playing against a good player and you're outside they made a mistake, but you're playing somebody who's good and you're like, oh no, I don't think I'll have time for that. But you know, like sometimes if you're playing against a new player, an experienced player, you'll feel much more optimistic that, you know, maybe they did that.
Yeah. So I guess Jarvis. No, I was thinking Jarvis could. No, I don't think there's much Jarvis can do here. Oh, Jarvis has access to Dread Return.
Oh, Dread Return. Yeah. Forgot about that. So yeah, actually, that's an Ashen Rider.
And did he hit? Did he hit the Dread
swooping
Return?
In. I don't see any.
He's got the Ashen Rider.
But let's say if he did hit Ashen Rider, what would he can hit Dark? Well, he can hit Elvish Reclaimer, I guess. But it wouldn't actually be that good because you can't really hit Dark Depths because then they can just hit. But I guess you hit Elvish Reclaimer and then Autumn just has a 20/20 and you have 2 Narcomoebas and a billion bridges. Though actually the bridges get exiled by the Hex Mage. Like you rely so much on your bridge from below to pressure your opponents because you can't keep looping Icarids. You don't have that many black creatures.
Right, but if you hit the Elvish Reclaimer, then Jarvis is sitting here with 3 lands in play that don't do much, and a 20/20 that gets exiled if he attacks, and he can't stage through it because there's blue cards and black. So
the Ashen Rider does it when it exiles 2. I always forget that part.
Right, yeah.
It
so
doesn't
Autumn wouldn't be able to attack into it. Not really.
Yeah, I guess they make those mythic rares better these days than like 10 years ago when we just do it when it enters. Power creep is real.
All right, so this will be the game-winning Reclaimer activation.
It's where you type in the chat, GG, well played.
I mean, these games were pretty close, though, considering...
Oh yeah, they were close for comfort.
Right.
As a dredge player, as a depth player, that's why when you play against dredge, I find closer than you would like.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems Autumn was able to overtake Jarvis's evil dredge plans.
So now they've evened it up, and the last match is going to be humans against the depth deck we just saw, which will be that should be a really good match.
Yeah, it's crazy. Those interactive depths against depths, you can get crazy.
Yeah, because humans has Mother of Runes and Flyers and Caracas. That's what it's got, and it also has. I'm not sure Jarvis's exact 75, but there should be at least like maybe 1 or 2 main deck answers to the Magalhaes, and probably an extra 2 or 3 in the sideboard. Anyway, we're gonna go to the away screen, right? Is that what we're calling it? The away screen. Yeah. And we'll be back for the last match in a few minutes.
Hey everyone, we are back for the final match of the night. This is actually our first best of 5 series that goes down to the very last match. Are you excited, Eric?
I am. I'm actually really excited. This should be a great match, I think.
Yeah, we just talked about how this probably should be a very interactive match. Lots of things to consider for both players that should. And I guess here we are talking about this, and then it's going to be a turn 2 kill. No. So, yeah, very much looking forward to this. And if you are looking forward to watching the LPL each week, apart from all the amazing players and commentators and Anurag and me, there's also 3 really important entities or individuals who are making this work, and that's Card Hoarder, Wizards of the Coast, and Scott Monroe. Scott is at GoodBrotherMTG on Twitter. And without those 3, I keep saying it every week, you would be looking at MS Paint drawings that I would have done like on my lunch break or something. So this is like all of you who came to us and said like, hey, this is amazing at GP Bologna, or even just on the internet. These 3 are making this work. So show them some love. They've been supporting us, like some of them actually for years. And with that, I think we're going to jump towards seeing what Jarvis' final deck of the night is gonna be like. That's humans. The allegedly best tribal deck in Legacy right now. I've heard that a couple of times. Eric, what do you think about that? How competitive is this deck?
Well, I was calling it the best travel deck before the Ren and 6 ban. I haven't really played a lot of it since then, but I love the deck. I think the deck is great. Somebody in chat said Autumn is a heavy underdog versus D&T. That is true, but that matchup is still winnable. In this matchup, Jarvis is not playing with Swords to Plowshares or Flicker Wisp. Jarvis has a Tomic, which is I don't know if Autumn can beat a Tomic main deck. We'll have to see their list. But there's a Tomic. There are 4 other flyers that can block along with Mother of Runes, and there's like there's 2 Rockets. So it's not as heavily skewed in one direction or the other compared to Death in Texas.
Yeah, and the quick clock that this deck usually presents, not only otherwise, but also thanks to Noble Hierarch, should make it quite troublesome for Autumn if they can't really piece together something quickly. I mean, there's draws where Autumn can rely on. I think they have, I saw that confident in their list. But Jarvis might just run away with the game. He might just say, okay, you got all this card advantage. I don't really care. I'm just going to kill you on turn 5 or something even. Like, this deck is pretty fast. So I'm curious how this is gonna work out. Do you see anything in the sideboard that could be pretty good for Jarvis here?
There's 3 more copies of Deputy of Detention, so that's 3 more answers to a 20/20. However, that is a harder card to cast than a lot of other cards because it's 3 mana, and sometimes the mana doesn't really work out in a way to cast it on time. But other than that, I'm not seeing, because it's not a human, so a lot of times he's going to have to name human on Cavern of Souls and Unclaimed Territory, one or the other, and then he's going to have to find a third colored source to cast Deputy of Detention. But other than that, I'm not seeing any extra tools in Jarvis's sideboard.
Yeah, and as we hear, Jarvis is actually going to be on the play once again, which is definitely going to be a big advantage in this kind of matchup. So I say we jump right into the match. And Eric, who do you think is the favorite? Who's going to make it to the top 3 of the LPL right now?
I think Jarvis is a favorite, but I expect the matchup to be pretty interesting to watch, and we'll see how it goes. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too, especially with him being on a play, which is probably going to give him a lot of speed. And actually looking at the deck, it's actually kind of interesting. Is this one of the cheapest legacy decks that people could actually buy to get into the format? Because looking at everything, I mean, yes, there's Wastelands, but the mana base is kind of cheapish. But anyway, yeah, we are seeing a pretty standard Mother of Runes opening. No acceleration for Jarvis. He's got a Wasteland to interact. Whereas on the other side of the board, we could see something like a turn 1 Dark Confident that, at least in the first game, Jarvis can't really do much about. But as I mentioned, sometimes you can just ignore and overrun the Dark Confident. But Autumn is thinking about that play. There's also a world where you get the Reclaimer. I'm not sure if that's where you want to be.
I could also see Autumn abrupt decaying that other runes, because that abrupt decay is completely turned off after this turn if they don't use it right now.
Yeah, strategically that's a very interesting choice, because that also means they will probably get maybe get rid of their Sachieri step, which is a big card, right? If you want to attack in the air and you want to beat them in a single swing, we saw it in the last match where in one of the games it actually made a difference that Autumn didn't have access to the cheery step anymore. So I think
Yeah.
that's what they're actually thinking about right now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I would be inclined to. I mean, I think it's a really tough decision right now about whether or not to use that abrupt decay or ignore the abrupt decay and rely on your Sajiri step. But I think they're kind of far away from comboing, so I think I would be kind of inclined to abrupt decaying the mother runes.
Yeah. I could see it, right? Because afterwards, the abrupt decay is not really going to do much anytime again. But they're going for the Dark Confident, the old vintage play. That's why people used to play vintage, and that certainly got me hooked on the card as well. On the other side of the board, we are going to see Thalia come down. Thalia not going to do too much. I guess it presents some kind of block at some point.
Yeah, I mean, it's really not
Yeah.
a great start for either player in this matchup. So, like I said, I think this matchup will be pretty interesting to watch because, I mean, neither of them have the tools who have neither of them have the hand that we can see right now. That's an obvious win. I think Jarvis with Imperial Recruiter next turn could find Tomic, and that might pretty quickly close things out.
Yeah, Tomic plus Mother of Runes should be really hard to beat for Autumn. I'm not even sure how they would actually get through that in the first game.
They'd have to combo the turn that Tomic comes, the turn that Jarvis recruiters for Tomic, which they might be able to do because they can play a land here and they can tutor for depths, and then they can make they can't. Yeah, they can make a 20/20 next turn. Yeah. Easy.
Easy. We found a flyer though. We found a flying blocker, but we also got the Sajiri step in hand, so that might actually not do enough.
Yeah. There's also a wasteland on Jarvis's side, so I'm not sure what Jarvis will do here, actually. I guess
I wouldn't. Yeah.
I mean, I guess he'll probably play the Kite Sail Freebooter, and Autumn will respond by presenting a 20/20 next turn. That's actually probably going to be game over. Right? Oh no, there's a wasteland. There's a wasteland.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, yeah, he's gonna take the abrupt decay and present wasteland and pass the turn, but as long as Jarvis doesn't present a clock or anything near a clock, then that Dark Confidence is probably going to run away with the game. It's the exact opposite of what I thought he might be able to do if he gets a fast start, which he didn't end up getting. So Autumn is probably comfortable, like making the trade, sitting back, and maybe even having something wastelanded eventually. Like they can even find a wasteland of their own and force the issue that way.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's going to be a depths here. Depths will get wasted, and then Jarvis will next turn. I'm guessing recruiter for Tomic, and then it's kind of hard to tell if the Tomic comes down fast enough through the Reclaimer or what Autumn would need to draw. I'm not able to really tell right now. Although the Tomic, I mean, I guess if the Tomic comes down at any point, the game's basically over, right?
Let me look it up again. It says that the lands can't be targeted, right, by either player.
Right. Well, also because Autumn won't be able to punch through a white and a black creature with this step, so...
Yeah, lands on the battlefield and land cards in graveyards can't be the target of spells or abilities you open. Yeah, that's actually going to make it like, I guess they could spend like 30 mana to make a creature, but then you're still not beating Mother of Runes and a flyer. So yeah, the setup to punch through that probably requires like multiple abrupt decays at the end of turn to tap the Mother, and then it's a nightmare scenario for Autumn if we ever get to see Tomic on the battlefield.
So yeah, so Thoughtseize was a pretty good draw then for Autumn.
One could say so, yeah. I guess that's what it takes to get to the top 3, but it's far from over by now.
Yeah, I mean, there's a waste. I think being able to snipe this recruiter out of the hand now you're right about the Dark Confidant probably being able to take over. But again, it really depends on what each player draws. If Jarvis ever draws a Caracas, I mean, I don't know how we beat that one on Autumn's side.
I wonder if the what's it called? Sanctum Prelate set to 2 actually makes it so that Autumn can never get rid of Mother of Runes plus a flying blocker. Because that turns off the abrupt decays. So you would rely super heavily on Sachiri step, but as soon as Jarvis finds any other way of interacting, that becomes a big problem. I guess that's what Autumn might have thought about, like because they were like
Ooh.
stopping so long. Oh, another character. Okay, I guess that
Ooh.
counts as interaction.
Huh. Okay. So now Autumn has to get through a Caracas and a Wasteland.
Yeah, not the best odds right now, and I guess this one's gonna come down on 2, or actually you could do it on 1 as well. I think 1 might actually make more sense.
Yeah, I would guess 1, but I think your reasoning about their abrupt decay is reasonable too.
Yeah, the 2 also shuts down Once Upon a Time, but I'm really not sure if Autumn can even beat this on 2 in the first place. So I guess that's what Jarvis is thinking about as well. It's probably like looking at Autumn's list right now.
And Autumn can beat it on 2. Autumn needs to Reclaimer for a Wasteland, Reclaimer for a so they need to draw running lands to get multiple Wastelands, and then combo, and then step to get through the black creature.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Does Cyrus have anything else that flies? I think he does not, at least not in a different color. Don't really see anything. I guess Atomic, yeah. Atomic flies, right? I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Atomic flies.
You throw Atomic on this board in the game, I don't think Autumn. I think Autumn concedes to Atomic.
So what are we actually looking to draw? Like you mentioned, probably a couple more. Probably the only thing is like more Wastelands. You could even make a case for turning your Thespian stages into Wastelands eventually if you can find more.
I think Autumn will probably sack a Depths here to get a Wasteland and then copy it. Oh,
another Wasteland for Jarvis.
Oh. My goodness.
Oh man. But Jarvis also doesn't really present a clock. He's just like sitting back, trying to get some kind of offense going.
Yeah, and this is why I said this matchup should be pretty interesting, because there are definitely the tools on the human side, but it's not like, I mean, they don't have swords to plowshares to go along with all this stuff, so it's not as like hard for the depths deck to get through everything as it is when for the depths against Death and Taxes.
Yeah, and the 3/4 while doing its job, Jarvis only getting in for 1 point of damage. At this point, I wouldn't even mind him finding just to increase the clock by 100% or something. Oh god. Yeah, so this is the point where Autumn can activate the Revoker and find something. Like you mentioned, probably a Wasteland. It just feels so miserable if you try to combo through 2 Wastelands, but I guess that's the only way you can really do it. Maybe you want to put a Hex Mage to the board so you don't need to rely on your Thespian stage and you can turn it into more Wastelands. But yeah, that's going to be rough. Like if Autumn finds a way out of this, that's going to be super impressive for me.
I can still see a line. I think they're supposed to copy this Wasteland with their stage here. Maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that's a good draw.
Okay. More guys, bigger guys. I guess you run out both creatures here, and you don't really want to run out the Dark Depth yet. I guess you're gonna, like you mentioned, it's probably gonna turn it into something, or you just wait a turn. You could also just wait. Right now, we don't really have green mana if we cast it that way.
Yeah. So I think Autumn is going to want to leave up an activation off this Reclaimer.
Mm-hmm.
Wasteland. Huh. Yeah, it's tough.
You do have a lot of time, and Jarvis at this point drew so many of the cards that he needs that he might not even have all that many cards left in the library. But yeah, I think as soon as you find another Recruiter or Atomic, that's the ticking time bomb, right? That's the thing. Once you find one of those, this might be lights out. Also, might be lights out in my room as well. It's like 4:30 in the morning at this point.
Oh boy, this activation. I'm not sure what Autumn's plan was with this, but it's going to backfire pretty bad with this Crocus in hand.
Mm. And they didn't know about the Caracas. Like Jarvis
No.
drew it right the turn after they get a look at the hand with the Thoughtseize.
So what was Autumn's plan here with the activating of the Hexmage? So activate the Hexmage, then Wasteland, Jarvis Wastelands, and then Autumn play. Oh, and then Autumn plays another Dark Depths and Wastelands the other Wasteland. Okay, that was.
This almost feels like a game of chess, but it's super cool.
So that's what's going to happen here. Autumn's going to play the other Dark Depths. Pass.
And then they can actually force the issue by wastelanding the other wasteland.
Yeah, so Autumn will see the Caracas here. Unless Jarvis tries to make...
They might make it on the upkeep. No, they don't. Oh, another wasteland. Yeah. Jarvis, you, ladies and gentlemen, that's how you do it. I'm not even sure if you want to play that. Maybe you even want to run the Caracas now, but he goes for the wasteland. And Autumn is like, oh, come on, dude. But there's still a lot of time. There's still a lot of time. Autumn is only taking 1 damage a turn while drawing 2 cards. So how many wastelands are still left on Jarvis' side? So he's probably got 1 more in the library and
one more.
No cards in exile.
1 more in his deck, in Jarvis's deck, and Autumn has 1 more in their deck, or 2 more.
I see no cards in exile for Autumn, so it should be
1 more.
2
more. There's 2 more in Autumn's deck. I'm not sure how they get through this though. At this point, that extra wasteland. If Jarvis hadn't drawn the wasteland, maybe, but yeah,
this is incredibly tight. Oh yeah, they're only playing 3 wastelands. Yeah, so there's not that many. I guess there's a world where you Thespian Sage to get more, but even at that point, it's probably not going to be very good. Yeah, they're trying.
Yeah, I mean this is a good play because then it has 2 wastelands. Autumn has 2 wastelands for Jarvis's wastelands. So Jarvis basically will probably activate one of his wastelands here, targeting the Thespian stage, and then Autumn's going to want to play. I don't know. Play out the Reclaimer, I guess.
I wonder if there's a world where Autumn gets. Yeah, you probably can't beat the human stack with the 3/4 beat down. It's just not happening, especially not with Sanctum Predate on 2. Which makes Mother of Runes even better.
Yeah.
And that's basically a double blank draw step for Autumn there. Kinda. I guess I can turn it into something and play another Urbok, but not great. Jarvis still on 20. Like for a moment I was like, hey, maybe there's a cheery step. The Elfish Reclaim of Jarvis goes low enough, but why would Jarvis even go low? Yeah, there's no clock at all.
The human's deck doesn't really take any self damage.
This deck is really cool. Maybe I should play that. Like people, you've been telling me to play this deck for quite a while now, right?
I have. I think you'd love it. I think it's great.
Like the first time I thought you were like joking or memeing or something, but then people were jumping on the human strain and.
No, the deck is great. It's a ton of fun. There's so many different like things that it can do. It has so Death and Taxes is basically like Thalia is the tax, and then Port and Wasteland, and then you've got like Flicker Wisp and some other toolbox stuff. This deck is like all toolboxes. Like the Wastelands are just like secondary. It's just like you have all these different creatures that do different things, basically.
Yeah, I could actually see this being a gateway into the format for people playing Modern. There's also like, I think it's not as good in Modern as it used to be, as people tell me. But yeah, it certainly used to be a tier 1 deck in the format. So now we have Thalia's Lieutenant coming down. So finally the clock increases for Jarvis. Does this actually allow for more attacks? Not really. I guess the freebooter deals 2 now, which helps.
Yeah, so now for Autumn, Autumn's hand is gonna be pretty well forced. Jarvis's clock is gonna be a little bit too fast now. So I guess Autumn will want to. I mean, I don't think they can actually do anything right now. I don't think Wastelanding does anything. They have to, I think basically have to untap and Wasteland and then make a 20/20 and hope that it works. Oh, interesting.
I bet Jarvis was looking at the list right now and to check whether it's safe to activate Thalia there. And I guess that must be protection from green, yeah. And he's trying to increase his clock, getting in for 4 damage.
I'd almost just block with the Bob.
Would you? It depends on what you still need to draw here, whether you feel you can do it like with.
Well, I think if I'm in Autumn's seat, I see the line of untap Wasteland, make a 20/20, and then you just end up losing to a Crocus. But I'd be worried about the clock.
Is there actually any way for Jarvis to gain life? I think the human stack doesn't have any kind of life gain here.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Brilliant.
Some lists have played like Charming Prince and can gain 3 life.
Charming Prince. One day, big legacy staple. We talked about it on the podcast, right? It's still yet to make an impact, but I kind of like the card.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool card. I tried it in Humans, wasn't all that impressed with it. It mostly scried.
Didn't draw 7 cards. Nah, not good enough.
No, it was no Gristlebrand. All right, so Jarvis is going to have to play out his Crocus now. And then I guess Autumn will probably see the writing on the wall when Jarvis plays out his Crocus. That's my guess. Ooh, boy.
Oh, that's another big one. Yeah. That actually allows for even better attacks. Like, I'm not even sure if Autumn beats this, even if Jarvis didn't have the Caracas.
Yeah, I can't quite see the numbers on those creatures, but it's looking pretty close to lethal.
Oh, and now Jarvis forces the issue. Oh, okay, because that way he gets to keep his Caracas. That's actually pretty smart. That way Autumn is like, what? You're gifting this to me? And I mean, at this point, Autumn must almost see what Charming Jarvis is trying to do here.
Yeah, I mean, so this will be a lethal. And so Autumn's probably thinking, why is he doing this? So he clearly has an answer to a 20/20. Can I beat the board?
I mean, there's a world where you Thespian stage your own wasteland before using it, so you can wasteland a potential Caracas that displays very much telegraphing.
Yeah, it could also be a the wizard, you know. What's that thing called? Exiles the 20/20. Could be that.
Deputy of Detention, or
Yeah.
oh,
I
yeah,
don't know. I don't imagine Jarvis would make this play with a Deputy of Detention in his hand, but it's possible.
now we see the Lieutenant coming down. So that should turn the Sanctum Prelate into a 4/4, which can attack. Thalia can attack with the first strike. Yeah, there's going to be a ton of damage coming Autumn's way here.
Yeah.
You might even just throw away the other Lieutenant because there might not be a good block for Autumn to eat the Lieutenant and take the other damage. Man, that's so much. Well, it's kind of impressive how Autumn actually stayed into like this game and almost close to winning for so long, considering everything that Jarvis threw at them in this game. So what are the big
will go to 1 here, and that means that the 20/20 next turn is not good enough. So yeah, because Autumn can block Thalia. Oh wait, no, there's 3 in the air as well. Autumn can block.
So Autumn is guaranteed to go to 4.
Lieutenant. Yeah.
So, like if Jarvis Alpha strikes, then Autumn goes to 2 and loses a bunch of creatures, I guess.
Yeah, I mean Jarvis or Autumn can block everything but 3 damage, or but 1 damage, and then the 20/20 is just not good enough.
Maybe it's time to bring back Rite of Consumption.
Hey, that would be pretty good.
Did you do that in some of your reanimator decks?
I had played it in like Reanimator Depth a long time ago, but
Oh yeah, we talked about that. How that was like your big break into, or the way you got into the format on Magic Online at least.
no, I played the format long before that. That's how I got into Reanimator.
Oh, okay. Oh, I remember, right? You played Bonde Stoneblade at the time. I remember that.
Yeah.
At least I pretend to remember that. I think I do. So yeah, I think there's nothing that Autumn can really draw here.
Just Rite of Consumption, but it's not in their deck.
I guess that takes us to sideboarding. Yeah. Samwise GG wins the first game. That was actually a really, really good game.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I think Autumn would have got there if Jarvis had drawn like one fewer Wastelands.
So what are we gonna see here from Autumn? Autumn is gonna not Thalia. What's the name?
From Autumn's bringing in
Liliana. Yeah, Liliana's coming.
Liliana.
I haven't seen Liliana in such a long time. I didn't even remember the name. Like at the time, there was a discussion whether like Chase or Liliana is the #1 planeswalker in Legacy, and look at them now.
So Safekeeper comes in because that gives protection from everything except for Wasteland. And Jarvis is bringing in those deputies. So Jarvis now has 3 more answers to a 2020. I think Jarvis wants to bring out Pontiff, but maybe not because of the Sylvan Safekeepers. Definitely taking out Meddling Mages because naming random cards out of the depths deck doesn't actually beat them.
Yeah, you would name that something like Crop Rotation or Hex Mage, but you might even be too late on the Hex Mage. So it's not great yet. I can definitely see that. I wouldn't hate the Pontiff, right? Yeah, he's actually bringing in the Pontiff just to take out the Olerada, what's it called, Safekeeper that you mentioned. So that's gonna be a big thing, yeah.
Safekeeper, so Olerada and Bob's. We've got 2 Hall of Famers in Autumn's deck here that can die to a Pontiff.
Taking out I guess the Sanctum Predates aren't that big. They don't really do too much. Autumn also taking out some discard, I believe. I think the 4 Thoughtseize stay in, which makes sense. They can take creatures.
Duresses, Bajuka Bog, 1 Mox are on their way out.
Yeah, usually when you take out Mox, you know that you're like gearing up for a little bit of a longer game, that you don't really need to punch through your combo on like the second turn because you're being threatened with another combo. So yeah, this should be another like long, pretty interesting game, and it's also gonna determine who's actually gonna be eliminated. Like if Autumn loses this one, they are gonna be out. They're gonna finish in a very respectable 4th place. And yeah, I guess both are trying to make it. Jarvis is trying to make it to his like 3rd final. Like this one would only take him to the the loser bracket final, but still quite close. So yeah, opening hands. We got the Once Upon a Time from Autumn with an otherwise not explosive hand, but quite intact. But yeah, they definitely need mana.
There's another note. Autumn has Plague Engineer, which is incredibly difficult for humans to beat. But Jarvis has Mirran Crusader in his hand, as well as the Deputy of Detention. So I think Autumn's going to have to take... Wow, that's a tough one.
I think you got to take the Mirran Crusader with
Yeah, it's got to be the Mirran Crusader. That's an awkward one to Thoughtseize here.
Thing is, would you Wasteland here if you're... No, actually, Wastelanding wouldn't make sense. Wasteland has tactical application, so I guess I'd go with the Hierarchy here.
Yeah. I would almost Wasteland if Autumn had led on a Bayou. Like I was saying earlier, I kind of like attacking Depth's mana with my Wastelands. It's kind of a newer approach I've started taking to it after playing with the deck and thinking, why is my opponent keep Wastelanding my Bayou and then I just lose because I never draw a green source?
Very common case of losing with elves. Like people always talk about how the deck is like the big mana deck and everything, but yeah, most of the games I lose with elves is because my mana is not working and because the opponent does something to my mana. I guess that's similar for our lands, right? We saw Jarvis play lands a couple of matches ago, and he also struggled quite a bit on mana on certain turns.
So Autumn.
So if you actually see the detention, detention dude going, that actually makes me want to play Noble Hierarch even more, to the point where I'm wondering, actually, is there something that's gonna, like, why is Autumn leading me into this line? Because I don't know, the Crusader should be really strong here, and I guess that's what Travis is thinking about as well. I don't know. I don't think that Autumn can really punish Jarvis here if he leads on turn 1 Noble Hierarch, turn 2 Crusader.
Yeah, I'm wondering what Autumn's. Maybe Autumn plans to abrupt decay the turn 1 play, whether it's Vile or Noble Hierarch, to slow Jarvis down, and then go for the turn 3. If Jarvis is tapping his mana, play his stuff, but at that point, I'm pretty sure Jarvis will be leaving up of Wasteland.
So chat actually reminds us that maybe the plan for Autumn is just to draw Hexmage and make the turn 2 token, and then leave Jarvis without any kind of interaction. I guess that's a fair plan. Maybe it's actually going to come to fruition. Maybe let's see what they're going to draw here.
No, I don't think that would be the reason for taking Deputy. Then, because then you just play Hexmage. Well, yeah, okay, fair enough. Maybe that is a reason. Because you wouldn't play Hexmage and then pass at the Wasteland. So maybe that was the reason.
Once again, a little bit of an awkward situation here. Like, you don't really want to have your Bayou Wastelanded, which is very likely to happen next turn. So do you go like Bayou Go and not make any kind of play? That's awkward, I guess.
I think you definitely go Bayou Go, because if Jarvis Wastelands the Bayou, then you just crop rotation for a stage, and then you just win.
Yeah. That's actually a really good play then. So would you even like Wasteland into open mana? I guess if you did that, you would do that on the upkeep the earliest, but I guess in this case it wouldn't really make a difference.
Now Jarvis wouldn't do that when he would just be dead to a crop rotation.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the plan is for Autumn is to just play Bayou past the turn, and then I'm not sure what their plan is against this Mirror Crusader. Okay, so Autumn's going to play Reclaimer. I guess that can get you a Wasteland, or get you the green source, or get you whatever you need. So it's not a bad. That seems pretty solid too. Thalia
could be annoying, especially with regards to like crop rotation and abrupt decays.
I mean, luckily for Autumn, they have a Plague Engineer to cover everything but Crusader. I guess the plan against the Crusader was that if it's only attacking for you're not that scared of that. So that's why you take Deputy Detention, because it answers a 20/20. So I guess Autumn was planning for a longer game.
Yeah, very much so actually. And if you got your 3/4 against their basically 2/2, that's not that bad.
At this point, Autumn really wants to draw more lands. So that's a land, kind of. It's not a land you really want to play out just for a land drop, but they might be priced in because they really needed a land here. Yeah.
I mean, that opens you up a little bit to the Wasteland, to a potential second Wasteland, but I guess you can't really play around that. And this way you actually get to hit your third land drop and get the Plague Engineer down, which is going to be a big game. How does Jarvis actually remove that? We saw Deputy of Detention. One of those is already gone. There's not too many other answers, I would say.
Yeah, it's Deputy. There's 3 more Deputies, though.
Oh, he's playing the full playset, right? There's going to be 4 of them after sideboarding. Wow.
Yeah.
Speak of the devil.
Well, that's going to be good for Jarvis.
Yeah. Can I say no? I cannot play the clip right now.
luckily for Jarvis, for Autumn, they have the abrupt decay for the deputy, but there's no green source. Huh.
They can eventually find one with the Reclaimer, though, I guess. I wonder if the Reclaimer is aggressively going to go after the deputy is aggressively going to go after Reclaimer at some point. Probably not, though. So
Yeah,
I guess we see
this first one will not be going after, because Autumn's going to play a Plague Engineer here and get a 2-for-1 or 2-for-0, and then Jarvis is going to need to answer it, and then Autumn's going to need to find a green source to answer the deputy, all while hopefully not dying to a Mirren Crusader.
Oh, Mom getting aggressive, getting for the 2 extra damage.
That's a really good draw for Autumn.
Oh yeah. I was gonna say I'm surprised that Cyrus didn't while in the Thalia, but I guess that's another way to play around the potential Plague Engineer that he's already anticipating.
Yeah.
Maybe Jarvis actually got the read on Autumn to have the Plague Engineer, so he was basically cashing in the Mom for 2 damage, knowing that it would go away anyway.
Yeah, I think it was definitely a heads up on the Plague Engineer thing. I think probably because Autumn played out a step, Jarvis was maybe thinking that along those lines. Ooh, and that was another good draw for Jarvis. Wow, every turn it's such a good draw for both players, because now the Abrupt Decay is going to be gone. Wow.
This deck is full of great interactive. I really didn't think the deck was gonna play out like this. I know I like Murphog, and I always figured okay, this deck is probably gonna be like Murphog, but not interactive in any way, but more like a stupid beatdown thing. But this is super interesting.
No, yeah, the deck really only has Thalia's Lieutenant as the beatdown angle. You also have there's the 1-drop that also grows, but generally, I mean, this deck plays all these these dorky little creatures that interact with your opponent on different angles.
I'm loving it.
Yeah, I think it's great.
I'm gonna get it from Card Hoarder tomorrow and try it out.
So now what? Now we've got a 2020 coming here.
Is it gonna do much though? Actually, the Jarvis needs to answer that, right? I mean, he can chump block it once.
Yeah, he's gonna chump block it once. So Autumn's gonna need to dodge a Caracas, basically, or a Mom.
Or another Deputy of Detention.
Yeah, or there's 2 more copies of Deputy. There's 3 more copies of Mother of Runes. There's 2 copies of Caracas. Okay, so
does Mother of Runes even do it? I guess Mother might not be active soon enough.
Yeah,
I guess Mother into another flyer.
Yeah, Mother into another flyer would.
But then we also have Suchiri Step is gone. Okay. Wizard should print a land that copies a land from the graveyard. There might be one.
Let's see what Jarvis is going to draw here. And it's a useless land, okay? So Jarvis is going to have 1 more turn to find a Deputy or a Caracas.
I wonder if there's any way for him to raise, taking Autumn down to 8.
Mentor or the Recruiter would also do it.
Oh yeah, because he has the land, right? Yeah.
So okay, and Sajiri Step is gone. You're right. So this is like the 3rd time in the last 2 matches where we've seen Autumn draw a Sajiri Step that didn't make sense to sandbag, and it was just so bad.
You know what?
It would protect from Deputy.
Yeah. I was gonna say maybe they're gonna get a Wasteland, but no, it's gonna come into play tapped, so that wouldn't do anything. So yeah, now a Recruiter or any kind of flyer or Bust, I guess. Taking us to a 3rd game. Yeah, that should do it for Autumn in this game.
Yeah. Yeah, this matchup is so. I have actually never played this matchup, but I knew it would be really, really interesting.
This really feels like playing chess. People say Death and Taxes mirror matches feel like playing chess. But wow, this is so close. This would be something where Jarvis might go back and be like, did I miss out on 2 damage somewhere? Could I have like represented something?
Yeah.
Wow.
Honestly, like if I were to be like sitting down at a table with a friend and wanted to play some legacy games for funsies, where I want to play the most interactive back and forth game, this would be up there. This matchup, I think.
Wow. I think we also have Eddie Zamora in the chat who's like the guy for humans. Eddie, can you tell us like what this deck is actually struggling against? Like how is this deck not taking over all of Legacy yet? This is super interesting to play.
I can answer that question for you. I bet.
Oh, yeah,
I bet Eddie's gonna say Plague Engineer.
Renowned humans expert Eric Landon.
No, I'm just making a wild guess that Eddie would say it's Plague Engineer. Or also because people don't want to play it because they think it's a modern deck. Let me speak. Let me speak for Eddie. Okay, all caps Plague Engineer.
Okay. I saw that. Okay, guys. So this is gonna be our last game, our last match of the night. This really comes down to the wire. We're gonna have Autumn fighting against Jarvis. Like both of them have deployed all of their decks. They have gone to the very last match. And now we have Jarvis on the play with an incredibly aggressive hand. Like if Jarvis finds a second land, like do you keep this? Like this really says I need my second land and I'm gonna go on the beatdown hard. Whereas Autumn is more on a like double Once Upon a Time. That never feels great, right? Like I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I really want to keep Jarvis' hand.
I think I would probably mulligan both of these hands. Jarvis's hand, the beatdown plan. I'm not so sure about that. You're gonna play a champion and then you're gonna play another champion. No.
Well,
I mean,
I would like. Yeah, if you draw the second land, okay, he's going for the mulligan.
I mean, so this hand's as beatdowny almost, but at least you've got Bana. So I think you probably keep it.
Yeah, fair. Would you put away the Pontiff, or even the Dismember? I'm really not sure.
He might mulligan. Honestly, it's not really what you're looking for, but I would probably put back probably the Dismember or the Pontiff. Yeah.
I mean, there's also a world which probably doesn't come up when you're running Horizon Canopy, where you're being attacked by a 2020, and you dismember it, paying 4 life to give it -5/-5, and you go down to 1 life. Like I've done that before,
insane.
but that's usually just super cute, right? But it would be like sweet if it was actually.
That would be super cool. Or like putting, yeah.
So Autumn is getting, it looks like an Orbok here, I think.
So their options are Stage, Waste, Urborg.
Oh yeah, now we can see it, yeah.
Urborg's already in hand from the draw step, so gotta pick up
so
a stage. Leaves them with the turn 3. Oh, okay, so they led with crop rotation. Going for slightly slower, but maybe more resistant plan than just turn 3 triple land 2020. All right, well, there's a blocker.
And this freebooter is really good. Every time I watch this deck, I'm getting so sold on it. Oh man.
I'm surprised you haven't tried it yet. This deck is right up your alley.
Yeah, I've just been really busy lately, and there's really no excuse. You know what? This shall be my next stream. I streamed Maverick today, and I'm gonna stream this someday this week even. So let's try that.
I'll tune in. Yeah, I was gonna say, you said you've been too busy. I don't know. I feel like I've seen you play Dinos.
Yeah, and I'm still sorry for that. I think we actually saw some friend of ours go down to Dino Stompy at the GP. I still can't believe that people actually picked up the deck, but there's probably more potential to the deck that we have unlocked yet.
Probably.
Yeah. So, what is Autumn thinking here? They're under a bit of pressure, not too much, but how are they looking to develop their board? Right now, it's really just a race.
I mean, I think Autumn just plays out another 1/2. Well, that's close. It could be Sylvan Safekeeper, so you play out Sylvan and then you make a 20/20 next turn, and there is a blocker, so that kind of...
Yeah, you gotta attack twice to get there, but right now, Jarvis doesn't really present, but Autumn doesn't know that, right? Autumn hasn't played any kind of discard spell yet, so Jarvis could have something. But on the other hand, Jarvis might run out his entire hand soonish, especially if he draws a land next turn, which is going to give Autumn perfect information.
Yep. I think any of Autumn's options here are reasonable, like leaving up Once Upon a Time, playing out a Reclaimer or a Safekeeper, all seem reasonable. I'm not sure what I would do, actually. I would probably play out the Safekeeper. It looks like Autumn's going to leave up Once Upon a Time.
The beatdown is real. Come on. Oh my god. This is gonna be 3 damage already. I mean, that doesn't sound like much, but next turn it's gonna be, oh god, how much is it gonna be next turn? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So
Well, minus the flyer, because that one's going to have to block.
yeah, true. Does it though? I think
Yeah.
Autumn might actually be in big trouble here.
17 in the next turn. I mean, if Jarvis draws another land, that's going to change things. But as things
I think-
stand, he's going to have to block with his freebooter.
Does he
next
really?
turn. Yeah.
So Autumn could play Thespian
He's-
Stage and then, well, they don't have crop rotation.
Well, that was a good draw.
Yeah, now the flyer has to block, right?
I'm pretty sure it already needed to. It was just going to be what? If it didn't block, then it dies to the 2020.
Well, I guess I thought there wouldn't. Oh yeah, there would be a 2020. Yeah, you're right. Of course, we have the Urbok, which allows the Dark Depths to tap for mana. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, this is.
So now Jarvis needs to rip.
Rip what?
Caracas, but that wouldn't do it.
No.
Actually, no, it would do. Oh no, it still wouldn't. Ah, shit. No. Oh, Jarvis, I think you're in trouble, man.
Yeah.
I guess you gotta find a
That's not gonna do it.
wasteland. No, but Autumn gets to play creatures. Gets to play lands.
Well,
So
okay,
bad.
so now we're looking. Tomic. Well, now we're looking at potentially a tough spot for Autumn. Now we got to look at the math here, because Jarvis gets to block, and then Jarvis gets to swing back with 4, 5, 6. So, oh my goodness, I think
ton of
Jarvis might
damage.
pull it off. So Autumn has another blocker though. All right. Well, if Autumn has the heads up here to Wastelands, oh no, that doesn't do anything. Shoot.
So in comes the 2020. Well, Autumn could double Wasteland if they wanted, I guess.
Autumn has 2 blockers, which is probably enough. But yeah, no, I think Autumn's fine here. I don't even think Autumn needs to block, actually.
Yeah, I think if you...
Where did that
don't know,
crop rotation come from? And couldn't that have been lethal?
The crop rotation came from the freebooter dying.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
So yeah, the wire not going to do anything here. So yeah, I guess Jarvis is just, sees the writing on the wall. And Autumn advances. Jarvis, our actually not reigning champion, but season 2 champion, season 3 finalist, is actually knocked out by Autumn Burchett at... Actually, not very... No, Autumn is in LA right now. So we're really wishing Autumn all the best for the MC tomorrow. And yeah, that concludes our top 3. And wow, what a match. Like, if you are in Showdown Legacy or on this kind of deck yet, I certainly am. Like, on this deck, I've been playing Legacy for a while, but this is really, really cool. So I definitely want to try that out. Just crazy. Eric, how do you feel? Maybe we can take a look at the bracket right now, so we can see how things are gonna work out in the future. Or I still can't believe that the kind of game we watched. Like,
So
it's 5 in the morning for me, but it's super worth it.
Yeah, no, I expected a pretty good one, because Humans definitely has a lot of tools, but not quite enough to make it like favored match. And Depths is extremely fast, so it kind of went about how I expected. But I knew, and it was really good games as expected. But I'm not shocked that Autumn was able to win with the Depth strategy.
Yeah, what I like about both decks is that there were like many different spots where either player could have screwed up and made a stupid mistakes. And I noticed that when I played depth and I tried to learn it, I also figured, oh my god, there's probably like 5 different things I could do here, and if I don't, then I might just lose. And once you master a deck, I think that's actually something that gives you a lot of confidence. So yeah, very well played from both sides, both well aware of what the opponent could do. And Autumn barely edges out Jarvis and moves on to the winner bracket finals, where they are either going to face Javier Dominguez, the reigning world champion, or me. we will find that out tomorrow. And not tomorrow, we'll find it out next week. Next week, we're going to be live again on our normal slot. We had some scheduling issues because of MPL things and because of the GP. But next week, Wednesday, 6 p.m. East, this channel, we're going to first air Javier against me in the same format with 3 decks. And right afterwards, the loser of our match is going to face off against Autumn to determine the 2 players for our grand finals, which will be played on Tuesday, 17th of December. So not on Wednesday, but on Tuesday. But next week, so basically all you got to remember is next week it's going to be Wednesday. The week after, it's going to be Tuesday. And those are the 2 things you got to remember. And this will conclude the MPL. Sorry, the LPL. We're not that big yet.
It's going to be one,
Eric,
unless you
pleasure.
can. It's up to you to provide an upset, or it is going to be won by an MPL member.
Oh yeah, it's basically me against the MPL at this point.
Yeah, only you can create it. Only you can give us the upset against the MPL in the LPL.
Let's see what I can do. Like going up against
Good
probably
luck.
the generally agreed on best Magic player on the planet right now. So yeah. What actually should I play next week? I'm a little bit lost. There's a couple of decks I could play. I think the only thing I don't want to play is actually I shouldn't give that away. I'm not going to give away what I don't want to play because Javier is going to be out there and he's going to be like, oh, Julian, tomorrow's the Pro Tour, the DMC, but I'm going to check out what you are going to say, what you're going to play. So, yeah, I really don't know what I'm going to play. I enjoy so many different kinds of Magic, but Javier is like threatening, right? Maybe I should just play Belcher.
I have some tips for you, but I feel like I should tell you in secret or they won't work.
Okay, so I guess everybody's got to tune in next week on Wednesdays to find out. We won't tell. Nobody in chat is going to tell.
You guys won't tell?
They say at least. I'm not going to believe them. Somebody says play elves. I don't have enough experience with that. But yeah, congratulations to Autumn. Thanks a lot to everyone. Thanks a lot to all of our commentators. Thanks a lot to you, Eric, and to our players, as well as to Anurag, who is really like doing all of this. Like the stuff you see, that's me, but anything that's moving, that's Anurag. And so the entire broadcast, so many people on Bologna, they came up to us and they were like, hey, this looks so amazing. Yeah, this is like the guy, well, no, not this one. Well, you get the idea. So thanks to you, Anurag. And with that, I'm going to head straight to bed because it's 5 a.m. and allegedly I got to work tomorrow.
All right,
so
thanks
a lot for that. Bye-bye. Good night, everyone. See you next week.
Bye.